The rain hit her windshield the same second her bumper hit his SUV. Jasmine Brooks was 28, a black overnight pediatric palliative care nurse in a burgundy sedan that still smelled like her dead husband's cologne. 7 hours earlier, she had held a dying child. 1 hour earlier, she had paid her mother's dialysis copay in cash, the exact cash meant for her own car insurance. Now she was driving uninsured through a storm the radio had begged people to avoid. The black armored SUV cut in front of her and stopped dead. 34 miles an hour, metal on metal, her airbag never fired. The driver stepped out into the rain. Seo Tae-hyun, 6'3", soaked black shirt clinging to his chest, sleeves rolled past the forearms, a black koi carp tattoo climbing the left side of his neck. Boss of the Seo Syndicate. They called him the Quiet Koi because he never raised his voice, not even once. He tapped her window twice. He half smiled. "My car died because of you, little one. You owe me a ride now." The address he gave her was not a police station. Inside her cramped cabin he named a number, $487,000. He named her lack of insurance. He named her profession before she said a single word. He already knew who she was and what he offered her next. Before starting the story, comment down below where you are watching from and what time it is there. If stories of karma, love, and hidden truths move you, leave a like, be sure to subscribe to the channel, and click join to become a member and help our channel. Jasmine Brooks pressed her thumb against the boy's wrist one more time, even though the number on the monitor had already told her what her thumb wanted to argue with. 7:14 in the morning. The hospice hallway outside room 4B was quiet in the way only hospice hallways are quiet, the kind of quiet that has weight. She let go of the wrist gently, as if the wrist could still bruise, and pulled the thin blue blanket up to the boy's chin. 6 years old. Neuroblastoma. His name was Marcus. She had known Marcus for 11 weeks, which was 3 weeks longer than any of the doctors had promised his mother. The mother was in the family room down the hall, asleep with her forehead against a vending machine. Jasmine had put her there at 4 in the morning. She would go get her in a minute. Not yet. She stood at the foot of the bed and made herself look at Marcus's face for a full count of 10, because that was what she always did, because if she didn't do it now, she would do it later at a red light, and she couldn't afford to fall apart at a red light today. 10 seconds. She counted them in her head. Then she washed her hands at the sink in the corner, dried them on a paper towel, folded the paper towel neatly, threw it away, and walked down the hall to wake the mother. The mother's name was Denise, and Denise looked at Jasmine's face and understood without a word being said. Jasmine held her. That was the part they didn't teach in nursing school, and the part she was best at. She held Denise for a long time, and Denise's hands gripped the back of her scrubs, and Jasmine felt something warm soak through the fabric between her shoulder blades, and she did not think about the wedding band under her sweater, the one that belonged to a man who had died in a room 2 floors above this one, 3 years ago, in a bed exactly like Marcus's. At 7:40, she signed out at the nurse's station. Her supervisor, a woman named Bev, slid a paper cup of coffee across the counter without looking up. "Marcus?" 7:14. Bev nodded once. "You want tomorrow off." It wasn't a question. Jasmine shook her head. "I need the hours." Bev finally looked up. She was going to say something. She looked at Jasmine's face and did not say it. She pushed the coffee an inch closer instead. "Drive careful. It's coming down like the sky broke." Jasmine picked up the cup. She smiled the small professional smile she had been carrying in her back pocket since she was 22. She walked to the elevator. In the elevator, she looked at herself in the polished steel of the door. The silk press was still holding, collarbone length, glossy as poured glass, a deep side part with one strand slipping over her right eyebrow. Her mother had done it Sunday night at the kitchen table, an hour of flat iron and Moroccan oil between 2 women who did not talk about the dialysis catheter under the cardigan. Jasmine tucked the strand behind her ear. The elevator opened. The parking garage smelled like wet concrete. She found the burgundy sedan in the far corner where the overnight staff parked. The paint was 15 years old and clean the way only a car can be clean when a nurse who works overnight loves it. She got in. She set the coffee in the cup holder. She turned the key. The engine caught on the first try. Small mercies. Her phone buzzed on the passenger seat. The screen said Mama, and then, below it, in the preview line, "Baby, they moved the copay up again. Call me when you're out." Jasmine sat with both hands on the wheel and watched the wipers push the first fat drops of rain across the windshield. She read the message twice. She did not open it. She backed out of the space. The dialysis clinic was 14 minutes away if she took the boulevard, and 18 minutes if she took the streets. And she took the streets because the boulevard would be flooding by now. She drove past the shuttered laundromat and the 24-hour Salvadoran bakery, where the woman behind the counter waved at her because Jasmine had held her father's hand the night he passed. She waved back. She kept driving. At a red light on 19th, she opened the glove box and slid out a white envelope. Inside the envelope was $340 in cash, insurance renewal money. The sedan's policy was set to auto-draft on Monday morning. She had counted it 3 times last night at 2 a.m. between med passes. 340. Exact. The light turned green. She put the envelope in the inside pocket of her tote, the one with the zipper, and kept driving. Loretta Brooks was already in the waiting room when Jasmine arrived. She was wearing the faded floral house dress under the beige cardigan and the orthopedic slippers she refused to trade for real shoes, and the small wooden cross on the leather cord was resting outside the cardigan today, which meant she had prayed on the ride over. She looked up when Jasmine walked in, and her whole face did the thing mothers' faces do, the thing where they become 20 years younger for 1 second and then remember and become 60 again. "Baby." "Hi, Mama." Jasmine sat next to her. The chairs were plastic. There were 4 other people in the waiting room, and all 4 of them were tired in the specific way dialysis makes people tired, a tired that lives in the bone. "They said," Loretta began, and Jasmine put her hand over her mother's hand. "I know, I got the message. It's fine." "It's not fine. I told you not to come." "You didn't tell me not to come. You told me they moved the copay." "That's the same thing." Jasmine did not answer that. She stood up. Her mother's fingers caught her wrist. "Jasmine." "Mama, sit." She walked to the front desk. The woman behind the desk was named Alicia and had gone to the same high school as Jasmine's cousin. Alicia's face said she already knew what conversation this was going to be, and Alicia's face said she was sorry. "How much did they move it?" "$280 this session. Last week it was $160. "I know, baby. When did they tell her?" "Yesterday. She didn't want to bother you at work." Jasmine unzipped the inside pocket of her tote. She counted $300 bills onto the counter without looking at them. Alicia pushed 20 back across the glass. Jasmine let it sit there. Is she getting her session today or not? If you pay, she's getting her session today. Then she's getting her session today. Alicia slid the 20 back 1 more inch. Jasmine picked it up finally and slid it into the tote and did not look at her mother across the room. She walked back and sat down. Loretta was staring straight ahead at the wall. "That was Monday's money." "Mama, that was the car's money," I said. Loretta turned her head very slowly. She looked at her daughter the way she had looked at her the day Jasmine came home from the funeral home and said the casket was closed. "Baby, you cannot drive without insurance." "I'm not driving without insurance. I'm driving until Friday when I get paid." "That is driving without insurance." "Then that's what I'm doing." A nurse in maroon scrubs opened the interior door and called Loretta's name. Loretta squeezed Jasmine's hand once hard, the way she had squeezed it in the delivery room 28 years ago according to family lore, and stood up on her thinned frame and shuffled across the linoleum in her orthopedic slippers. She did not look back. Loretta Brooks had never in her life looked back, and Jasmine loved her for it and hated her for it in the same breath. Jasmine sat in the plastic chair for another minute after the door clicked shut. She watched the rain hit the parking lot outside the window. It was coming down harder now, the drops jumping off the asphalt like the ground was rejecting them. The forecast on the radio this morning had said the front would sit over the city until midnight and then intensify. The word the man had used was intensify. 280 this session. Next Tuesday would be a session 2, and the Tuesday after. The clinic had done this once before, 6 months ago, a $50 bump the accounting office had blamed on a new billing system, and the bump had never gone back down. This one would not go back down either. She knew that the way a nurse knows a fever is going to break or not going to break without needing anyone to confirm it. She thought about the manila envelope she did not yet have. She did not know she was about to be given one. She was only thinking about the shape of the week, and the shape of the week had teeth. She got up. She walked to the sedan. She sat behind the wheel and did not turn the key for a full minute. Then she rested her forehead on the top of the steering wheel and let out one breath that had been in her chest since 7:14 a.m., and only that one, because a second one would have taken the whole morning with it. She sat back up. She turned the key. She drove to the hospice. She wasn't scheduled to be at the hospice. She was supposed to be going home to sleep. But there was a box of donated Christmas ornaments in the volunteer closet that she had promised the activities director she would sort before Wednesday, and Wednesday was tomorrow, and if she went home, she would lie in bed and think about Marcus's mother asleep against a vending machine, so she drove to the hospice. The parking lot was almost empty. The day shift was inside. She parked under the overhang because of the rain and pulled her coat tighter and walked in through the side door. Father Emmanuel Achafer was in the corridor by the chapel. He was standing very still with the leather satchel on the floor between his shoes, one hand on the wooden rosary at his left wrist, the other hand flat on the wall as if the wall were something he was consoling. He turned his head when he heard her footsteps. "Sister Jasmine? Father, you were with the Peterson boy tonight." "Yes, I heard." She nodded. She did not trust her voice at the word heard. Father Emmanuel bent, picked up the satchel, and walked toward her. He was 62 and moved like a man who had walked a great deal in his life, deliberate, unhurried, saving his steps for the ones that mattered. He stopped in front of her. He was a full head taller than she was, and his eyes behind the thin wire glasses were the softest thing in the building. "Do you have a moment, child? For you always." He looked left down the corridor. He looked right. Then he opened the leather satchel and took out a sealed manila envelope. It was the size of a magazine, thick, taped along the flap with clear packing tape. It had no writing on it. "I need you to keep this for me." "Father, until Monday, that is all. Monday morning I will come to your apartment and I will take it back." "What is it?" He smiled. The smile was tired. "Something I would rather not carry through this weekend." She did not take the envelope right away. She looked at his face. He looked back at her steadily. "Father, is it dangerous?" "To me, not to you. That is why I am asking you and not asking myself." He laid the envelope in her open palm with both his hands, the way a man lays a sleeping infant. It was heavier than it looked. She slid it into the olive green tote next to the zippered pocket and pulled the tote strap higher on her shoulder. Monday morning, before your mother's session, I will come with coffee. You don't drink coffee. I will bring it for you." He squeezed her forearm through the coat. Then he turned and walked toward the chapel, and Jasmine stood in the corridor holding the strap of her tote and felt the flat weight of the envelope against her hip. She stood in the corridor after he was gone. Her palms still remembered the weight of the envelope even though the envelope was in the tote now. She lifted the tote strap and settled it on the opposite shoulder. Then she settled it back. She could not decide which shoulder felt lighter, and it bothered her that she was trying to decide. Father Emmanuel never asked for anything. In 3 years, he had asked her for 1 glass of water at a bedside and 1 prayer at a graveside, and both of those had been things he could have done himself. Now he had asked her to hold something until Monday, and Monday was 4 days away. And 4 days was the length of a small forever when a person did not know what was inside a taped manila flap. She did not open the tote to look. She had promised nothing about not opening it, and she did not open it anyway. Some promises were the kind you kept without them being spoken. She sorted the ornaments for 40 minutes. Broken stars in one pile, chipped angels in another, anything with glitter still holding in a third. The activities director walked in halfway through, saw her sitting on the floor of the volunteer closet in her coat, said nothing, put a bottle of water next to her knee, and left. At 9:15 a.m., she drove home. Home was a one-bedroom on the second floor of a walk-up in a neighborhood that had been affordable when she and her husband had signed the lease 4.5 years ago and was no longer affordable at all. She parked at the curb. She climbed the stairs. She put the envelope on the kitchen table. She looked at it for a moment. Then she moved it to the top of the refrigerator, behind the cereal box, where the light from the window did not reach. She slept until 3:40 in the afternoon. She woke because her phone was buzzing. It was the hospice. The night charge nurse had a family emergency and was asking if anyone could take a partial. 6 p.m. to 2 a.m., 8 hours at time and a half. Jasmine sat on the edge of the mattress. She did the math in her head. 8 hours at time and a half at her rate was $382 before taxes. The Monday autodraft would not clear now. The autodraft would bounce and the policy would lapse, and the reinstatement fee was $95. And $95 plus what she had left was still not enough to cover next month, so she had to work the shift, and she had to drive to the shift, and she had to drive home from the shift, and every one of those miles she would be uninsured. She said yes. She showered. She reset the silk press with the flat iron on a low setting because her mother would have skinned her for using it hot on wet ends. She put on the dusty teal knit sweater and the dark high-waist jeans and pulled the long cinnamon wool coat off the hook by the door. She tucked the thin gold chain inside the sweater so the wedding band sat cold against her sternum. She picked up the olive green tote. She glanced at the top of the refrigerator. The envelope was still there behind the cereal box. She left the apartment at 5:30. The rain had eased for one deceptive hour in the afternoon and was starting up again as she went down the stairs. By the time she pulled out of the curb, the wipers were on high. The shift was heavy. 2 admits, 1 discharge home, a family who wanted to talk about hospice for the first time and did not know the vocabulary. A code blew on a patient who had a DNR that took 20 minutes to physically locate in the chart, a bathroom break she never took. At 1:45 in the morning, she signed off and clocked out and walked to the parking lot in her cinnamon coat with the collar turned up against the wet. Her sedan started on the first try. Small mercies. She pulled onto the Industrial Boulevard at 10 to 11, the shift had run over, and by 10:47 she was 3 miles from home, driving 40 in a 45, both hands on the wheel at 10 and 2, the way a woman drives when a woman knows her insurance renewal did not clear. The boulevard was empty because the boulevard was always empty at that hour. Warehouses on both sides. Chain link. Sodium lights every 100 feet. The rain came down in sheets that turned the sodium lights into orange smears. She had the radio off. She was thinking about the manila envelope on top of the refrigerator, and she was not thinking about it at the same time, the way a person thinks about a locked door in a house they are alone in. The black SUV came out of a side lot on her right, 3 car lengths ahead. It did not merge. It cut. It swung across both lanes and stopped in front of her, brake lights blooming red through the water on her windshield. Jasmine's foot went to the brake. The brake caught. The tires did not. The sedan hydroplaned 4 feet, 5 feet, and the front bumper struck the SUV's rear at 34 miles an hour. And the airbag did not deploy because it was a 15-year-old car, and the impact was just under the threshold. And Jasmine's head snapped forward against the shoulder belt and back against the headrest. And for 1 second the world was the sound of the wipers slapping and her own breath coming out short. The coffee cup from the morning was still in the holder. It had tipped in the impact. A brown ring bled across the plastic tray under the gearshift. Jasmine watched the ring spread without seeing it. Her ears were doing the thing ears do after a small collision, muffling the world into cotton and then letting it back in. Then the SUV's engine died. She heard it die. A ripple of clicks under the hood and then nothing, the big machine going still on the wet asphalt in front of her. Her own engine was still running. That was the first strange thing. Her 15-year-old sedan hummed. The armored SUV, whatever kind of vehicle it was, had gone quiet as a stone. Her hand stayed on the wheel. She could not feel her fingers. She told her fingers to move, and they did not immediately. She told them again. They moved. The driver's door of the SUV opened. He stepped out into the rain, and she saw the shirt first, because the shirt was the thing the sodium light hit, a black dress shirt already soaked through, clinging to a chest and shoulders that the shirt had been tailored for. Sleeves rolled to the forearms. The rain ran down his forearms and off the tips of his fingers. His hair was black and disheveled by the water, strands falling across his forehead, and the water was tracing a line down the left side of his neck, and the line was tracing a shape, and the shape was a fish, a coy, black ink curling up out of his collar and disappearing under the wet fabric at his throat. He was tall. She had never in her adult life had to tilt her chin up to look at a man through a car window, and she had to tilt her chin now. He walked around the side of his SUV. He walked around the front of hers. He was not hurrying. The rain did not seem to concern him. He came to her window and stopped. He looked at her through the glass. His eyes were black and unreadable, and the water was running down his face, and he did not blink to keep it out. He looked at her for what felt like a long time and could not have been more than 2 seconds. Then he raised one hand and tapped the glass twice with his knuckle. Slow taps. Old, thin scars across the knuckles caught the orange light. She lowered the window an inch, then 2. Rain slid in over the rubber and onto her sleeve. He tilted his head. The half-smile was not warm. It was not cold either. It was a thing that had been practiced. My car died because of you, little one. His English was accented and precise, the consonants placed exactly where he wanted them. You owe me a ride now. She opened her mouth. Nothing came out. She closed it. She looked past him at the dead SUV, at the crumpled edge of her own hood, at the empty boulevard in both directions, at the sodium lights, at the rain. He was watching her face while she looked at all of that. When her eyes came back to his, he was still watching. Sir, I need to call the police. There is a procedure. Yes. He waited. But you are not going to call the police. Excuse me, because your insurance lapsed at 9 a.m. yesterday morning. The rain kept falling. The wipers kept slapping. Somewhere a block away, a train was moving through a crossing, and the bell was ringing, and the sound of the bell reached them thin and far. Jasmine's hand was still on the window crank. Her fingers had gone cold again. He leaned down closer so that his face was almost level with hers through the 2-inch gap, and the water dripped off the ends of his hair onto the frame of her door. Turn the wheel. Follow me. It is not far. Where? An address, not a police station. He tapped the glass once more, gentle this time, and turned and walked back toward the dead SUV without looking to see whether she would follow. The koi on his neck disappeared into the collar as he walked. The rain closed behind him. Jasmine sat with both hands on the wheel and the wipers slapping, and her mother's dialysis copay, and a sealed manila envelope on top of a refrigerator across town, and a wedding band cold against her sternum. And she watched the tall stranger open the back door of the SUV instead of the driver's door, and slide into the back seat, and pull the door shut. And a second figure she had not seen was already behind the wheel with black-gloved hands resting on the top of the steering wheel, and the SUV's engine turned over on the first try as if it had never died at all. The brake lights bloomed red in the rain again. They were waiting for her. She looked at her phone in the cup holder next to the tipped coffee. 911 was 3 buttons. 3 buttons was a fine, a court date, an impound lot, a mother without a session on Tuesday. 3 buttons was a mugshot on a slow news day. 3 buttons was the sedan her husband had bought her the summer before he got sick towed into a yard she could not afford to redeem. She put her hand on the gearshift instead. She eased the sedan forward 1 foot, then another. The bumper scraped against the SUV's rear as they separated. Her hood was crumpled up along the passenger side, folded like paper, but the sedan moved. Small mercies. She had begun to hate that phrase and had begun to need it more. The SUV pulled away in front of her, slow at first, checking that she was following, and then finding its speed. She followed. The wipers slapped. The koi carp on the wet man's neck was already in her memory in a place she would not be able to reach in and remove later. She did not know where she was being led. She followed anyway. The SUV slowed at a wrought iron gate she had not seen from the boulevard. A camera swiveled. The gate parted without a sound. Jasmine kept both hands on the wheel and let the burgundy sedan follow through, past a gravel drive that curved between two rows of bare oaks. The rain sheeted against the windshield in silver ropes. She counted the seconds between the wipers to keep herself inside her own head. The drive ended in front of a stone house that was too long to be a house. 6 windows on the ground floor. 9 on the second. A single lantern burned above the door. Yoon parked the SUV at an angle that boxed her sedan against a low wall. He stepped out first, gloved hands folded in front of him, and waited under the lantern without looking at her. Tae-hyun opened her passenger door before she had shifted into park. He slid into the seat beside her. Wet cotton pressed to skin. He shut the door and the rain went muffled. Kill the engine. She killed it. The sedan ticked. The wedding band on her chest was ice under the sweater. You know why I am sitting in your car and not asking you into mine. She waited. Because this is your problem, little one, not mine. I want you in the seat where the problem lies. He set both hands flat on his thighs. The koi curved out of his collar and vanished at the jaw. Rain slid off the point of his chin onto the dark shirt and disappeared. He looked at the dashboard clock, not at her. 2:17. My car cost $487,000. The armor package is another $90. The rear axle housing you cracked is a 6-week order out of Munich. So I am going to say a number and you are going to nod when I say it. 487,000. Her mouth was dry. Nod. She nodded once. Good. Now the other number. Your insurance lapsed at 9:04 yesterday morning. The check bounced at the reinstatement portal at 9:06. $95 fee. You have $340 in a zippered pocket of a green tote in the back seat and $11.22 in the account that pays your rent. She turned her head slowly. He was still watching the dashboard clock. How? That is not the question you want to ask. How? He allowed it. Because I asked. People answer when I ask. You do not know my name. Jasmine Brooks, 28. Overnight pediatric palliative at St. Bede. 11 weeks with a boy named Marcus Peterson, who died at 7:14 yesterday morning. Your mother is on dialysis Tuesdays and Fridays, and her copay went up $120 last week. Your husband died on the 3rd floor of St. Bede 3 years and 2 months ago from a glioblastoma, the insurance called experimental. You wear his ring on a chain because your knuckles swell on night shifts and you are afraid of losing it in a Sharps container. She did not move, so now we can have the conversation. You did this on purpose. I did not tell your insurance to lapse. You cut across 2 lanes. I braked. You hit me. That is what the camera on the corner will show. The camera at the truck yard will show the same thing from a better angle. The camera at the loading dock behind you will show you following too close in the rain. I have already asked for all 3. You have not asked for anything. It has been 40 minutes. He turned his head then. The almond eyes were not cold. They were something worse. They were patient. Little one, I have people who ask before I know I need them to. She held the wheel. The plastic squeaked under her palm. I have 2 doors to offer you, he said. Behind door 1, my driver walks to the end of the drive and calls the 9th precinct. A patrol car takes 14 minutes in this weather. You are booked at 3:40. Driving uninsured is a 4th-degree misdemeanor in this county. On its own, 90 days suspended. Attached to a hit-and-run of a vehicle worth almost $500,000, the DA charges felony reckless. You lose the nursing license for the pendency of the case. Your mother misses her Friday chair because you are the one who drives her. She goes into fluid overload by Sunday. She is dead by Wednesday. He waited. Behind door 2, my aunt-in-law is upstairs, 67, left side stroke 8 months ago, on home hemodialysis 3 nights a week, 4 hours a night. My current night nurse quit last Tuesday because my aunt threw a bedpan at her and connected. I need a nurse who does not startle. Someone whose hands have been in worse rooms than this one. You knew what I did before you cut across the lanes. I chose the person on the road tonight. I did not choose the road. That is not an answer. It is not. The rain thickened. Yoon had not moved from under the lantern. He was smoking now, the cigarette cupped in a gloved palm, the ember the only warm thing in the yard. Door 2, T. Hyun said. 6 nights a week, 7 to 7, cash weekly. 4,000 a week for as long as the debt runs. Debt shrinks by the actuarial cost of 1 night of you. You keep your day job, you keep your license, you keep the sedan. The bumper repair goes on my ledger. Your mother's Tuesday chair is delivered to her door by an ambulette I already own. Her copay is 0 for as long as this arrangement is active. 4,000 a week. Her mind did the math before her mouth could catch up. Debt closes in 122 weeks, 2 years and 4 months of night after night in a stranger's house. You bought her chair before you got in my car. I made a call after the airbag did not deploy. That is different. It is not different. It is not. She let go of the wheel, her hands hurt. She pressed the heels into her eyes for 1 long second. Why me? I said the wrong thing. You did not ask why me. You asked how I found you. That was the right question. This one is soft. Answer it anyway. He looked at the clock again. 2:19. Because you buried a boy this morning and paid a copay you could not pay and took a shift you should not have taken and drove a car you should not have been driving and none of it made you flinch. That is the person I need in the room upstairs. My aunt bites. She spits. She calls the last nurse a whore in 3 languages. She will call you worse. You will still show up at 7 tomorrow night. Tonight. Tonight, he agreed. I have not said yes. I have not asked. She almost laughed. It came out as a breath through the nose. He opened the door. Rain came in on the shoulder of the black shirt. He paused with 1 foot out. There is a housekeeper named Mrs. Han. She will feed you at 10 and again at 3. There is a room off the kitchen with a cot and a lock on the inside. The lock works. I checked. My aunt's name is Hee-won. She does not know why she is here. Do not tell her. That is not cruelty. That is medicine. If you say door 1, I will still pay your mother's Tuesday. I do not take that back. He was gone into the rain before she could set her tongue against a word. She sat inside the ticking sedan until the wipers stopped mattering. Yoon walked over and tapped the roof with 2 knuckles. She rolled the window down an inch. 7 then. She said it to the dashboard. 7, Yoon said. It was the first word she had heard from him. It sounded like a lock closing. She drove out through the gate. The gate closed behind her. She did not sleep. She sat on the kitchen floor at 4 in the morning with her back against the fridge and the manila envelope on her lap, and she did not open it because Father Emmanuel had asked her not to. She slid it back to the top of the fridge behind the cereal box. She poured a glass of water and did not drink it. At 6, she took Loretta to the clinic for a Tuesday chair that had been moved to Wednesday because of the storm. An ambulette was waiting at the curb when they came out. The driver had her mother's name on a paper taped to the dash and a folded blanket in the passenger seat that smelled clean. Loretta looked at Jasmine and did not ask. Jasmine drove to the estate at 6:40. Yoon opened the gate before she reached the intercom. The room upstairs was cream and gold and smelled of eucalyptus and antiseptic, and the sweet metal tang that lived on the skin of dialysis patients between rinses. Hee-won lay on her right side because the left would not obey her. A hospital bed, a humming machine on a rolling stand, 2 Roman 4 poles, a monitor with 3 colored lines, a window that gave onto a rose garden trimmed for winter. Mrs. Han, small and gray and steel-eyed, showed her the crash cart, the emergency numbers, the drawer where the extra tubing lived, the drawer where the Ativan lived, and the drawer where a 9mm lived, and she said each in the same voice. You will not need the last drawer, Mrs. Han said, but it is here. Hee-won opened her eyes at 7:02 and looked at Jasmine and said a Korean word Jasmine did not know. Mrs. Han did not translate. Hee-won said it again. Mrs. Han left the room. I am Jasmine, Jasmine said. I am your nurse tonight. The old woman turned her face into the pillow and wept without a sound. Jasmine sat on the low stool by the bed. She did not touch her yet. She waited the way she had waited by Marcus. After a long time, Heewon's hand came out from under the blanket, palm up, tremor in the fingers. Jasmine put 2 fingers into the palm, and the palm closed on them like a child's. The dialysis machine hummed. The humming filled the room and filled her chest, and she recognized it. It was the same machine on the same setting she had watched her mother sit beside for 140 Tuesdays. It was the same low, steady note. It was the same wound. She did not cry. She stayed until the 4 hours were done and Heewon slept. Taehyun came to the door of the room at 11:40. He did not come in. He stood in the corridor with his hand on the frame and he looked at the machine, not at her. She held your hand. Yes, she has not held anyone's hand since May. He left. The nights ran together in the way nights do when the world has narrowed to one room. Jasmine learned the timing of the fluid removal. She learned that Heewon liked her water at the exact temperature of the inside of her wrist, that she would take rice porridge if it was cooled to lukewarm and refused it hot, that she cried at 11 every night for a reason no one on the staff could explain, and that if Jasmine hummed a hymn her mother used to hum, Heewon would stop crying and sleep. She learned the house too. She learned the 2 guards at the gate rotated every 6 hours and were younger than she expected. She learned Yoon slept in a room next to the study and never fully closed his door. She learned Mrs. Han was widowed and had a grandson at MIT whose photograph lived on the refrigerator behind 3 magnets. She learned Taehyun kept a study at the far end of the 2nd floor, that a light burned there most nights until 3, and that he came to the doorway of Heewon's room at 11:40 every night and stood for the length of one breath and left again. She did not learn his aunt's history. She did not ask. On the 4th night, Heewon pushed her rice porridge across the tray table and it landed on the floor without breaking. Jasmine cleaned it up. She warmed a 2nd bowl. She held the spoon and waited. Heewon turned her face away. Jasmine set the spoon down and picked up the old woman's hand and put it against her own cheek and held it there. Heewon left her hand where it was for a full minute. Then she opened her mouth. On the 5th night, the machine alarmed at 2 in the morning. Jasmine cleared the line, reseated the Venice needle, and reset the pump inside 40 seconds. Her hands were dry the entire time. She wrote it up in the log and initialed. When she looked at the doorway, Taehyun was there again, one shoulder against the frame, hair still wet from a shower she had not heard. He did not speak. He watched the pump come back to a hum. He nodded once and was gone. On the 6th night, she found a plate of pear slices on the kitchen counter at 3 in the morning, with her name written on the paper napkin in a hand that was not Mrs. Han's. The characters were blocky and careful. She ate 1 slice standing up, and then she wrapped the rest in the napkin and took it upstairs and did not eat the rest. On the 7th night, Yoon came into the room at midnight for the only time and asked her in a voice pitched below the pump if the Ativan drawer was still the Ativan drawer. She said yes. He said good. He left. She did not ask. On the 8th night, she caught herself humming the hymn under her breath in the kitchen at 4 in the morning while she rinsed a mug. Mrs. Han was at the counter with a paring knife. Mrs. Han did not look up. "That is the same song, Mrs." Han said. "The same as what?" "Oh, the same as she asks for." Jasmine set the mug down. "She asks for it. In Korean. She asks for it in Korean. I did not know it in English." Jasmine looked at her own hands on the sink. Her mother had hummed that hymn beside a dialysis chair for 140 Tuesdays. Somewhere on the other side of a language, a woman had asked for the same 6 notes and gotten them from a stranger who did not know she was answering. She rinsed the mug again. She set it upside down on the towel to dry. On the 9th night, the cousin came. Choi Min-yi arrived at 9, wet from the rain that had not stopped in a week, in a navy suit a size too tight, a red silk pocket square, the heavy gold chain half swallowed by his collar. He walked past Yoon without looking at him, and he opened Heewon's door without knocking. Jasmine was drawing blood for the mid-run panel. She kept her hands steady. "So this is her." He said it in English so she would hear. His accent was clean and mocking. He smelled like a cologne that cost more than her rent. "Please step out. You are new. Please step out. Do you know whose bed this is? I know whose room this is, that is enough. He grinned, he looked at Hee-won and the grin thinned. Ask him, he said. Ask him whose wife she was before she was his aunt. Ask him what year. Ask him where the husband is buried. Ask him who put him there. He left the door open when he went. Jasmine finished the draw. She sealed the tube. She labeled it. She wrote the time on the log in a hand that did not shake, and she carried the tube down to the kitchen refrigerator where the courier picked up the labs at midnight. Mrs. Han was at the counter, cleaning a cast iron pan she had already cleaned. He should not have come tonight, Mrs. Han said, not looking up. Who was her husband? Mrs. Han set the pan down. She wiped her hands on a towel. She did not answer for a full minute. You should not ask me that. I am asking anyway. Mrs. Han lifted her chin. Her eyes were tired. His name was Cho Jin-ho. He was the head of the family that ran the West River before this one did. He died 6 years ago. MS. Hee-won had her stroke the night she was told. Told by whom? You know by whom. Jasmine set her hand flat on the counter. Under her palm, the marble was cold. She could feel the vein in her wrist against the stone. She could feel the wedding band under the sweater. She could feel $4,000 a week and a mother in a chair and an ambulette that smelled clean, and she could feel the humming machine 3 flights above her, humming for a woman who had lost her husband to the man who was paying Jasmine to keep her alive. Why is she still here? Mrs. Han picked up the pan again, because he cannot forgive himself, and because if he lets her die, the West River families come for him. She is a treaty. She is a hostage. She is loved. Both things can be true. Yes. Jasmine went back upstairs. She sat on the low stool. Hee-won was sleeping on her right side. The machine hummed. Jasmine put her hand over the old woman's hand and left it there for a long time. Then she washed her own hands twice, and she went about the second half of the shift. And at 4 in the morning, she wrote the mid-run report, and she wrote her observation of the mid-run report, and she wrote nothing else. And at 7 she went home. She did not sleep that day either. She sat at the kitchen table and looked at nothing. Loretta came home from her Wednesday chair by ambulette and stood in the doorway with the clean folded blanket over her arm. You look like your father did the week before he told me he had been fired. I have not been fired. That is not what I said. I know what you said, Mama. Loretta sat down across from her. She waited. Mama, if a man does a bad thing and then spends 6 years trying to keep the widow of that bad thing alive, is that atonement or is that theater? Loretta thought about it. Depends on whether he does it when nobody is watching. He does it at 11:40 every night. Nobody is watching. Then it is atonement, but baby, that does not mean it is your job to sit inside it. He is paying your Tuesday. I know you know. Loretta reached across the table and set her hand over Jasmine's. The wooden cross clicked against the table. Baby, when something looks like mercy but the door only opens one way, that is not mercy. Jasmine did not answer. She went to the estate that night. She sat with Hee-won. She hummed the hymn. Hee-won slept. On the 12th night, she came out at 7 in the morning and the sky over the drive was the color of tin, and Detective Raymond Callahan was leaning against the front fender of her sedan. He was heavy in the shoulders and the trench coat was cheap and the mustache was red going gray. He held a takeout coffee in one hand. He did not offer her the other one. MS. Brooks. She stopped 10 feet from him. Yoon was already stepping out of the front door of the house. Callahan lifted a hand without turning. Stay where you are, friend. I am not here to arrest anybody today. Today is a chat. Yoon stopped. He did not go back inside. MS. Brooks. Your car has been through this gate every night for 12 nights running. 7 at night, 7 in the morning. Regular as a bus route. You want to tell me what a hospice nurse from St. Bede is doing on the sleep schedule of Co. Tae-hyun's household? I have a private client. I have 12 nights of you on a private client. I have plate reads on the boulevard the night your bumper met his. I have a body shop invoice from a garage in Astoria that says your sedan is on his account. I have your bank statement, MS. Brooks, there is a lot of nothing in there, and then all of a sudden there is a lot of a very specific something. I am not required to talk to you here. You are not. He drank the coffee. He watched her over the rim. but you should know what my file looks like this morning. On page 1, it says COT Hyun. On page 2, it says Jasmine Brooks. On page 3, it says accomplice. That page went to the district attorney's office an hour ago. I did not want you to hear it from a uniform in a parking lot. She kept her face still. Her hands were fists in the pockets of the cinnamon coat. That is not what this is. Ma'am, in my job it does not matter what things are. It matters what they look like from the outside of the gate. He set the coffee cup on the hood of her car. He turned and walked back down the drive to a plain sedan she had not noticed parked past the Oaks. He got in without looking back. The gate opened for him and closed behind him. Yoon crossed the gravel to her. He did not touch her. He picked up the coffee cup from the hood of her car and looked at the lipstick print on the rim, which was not hers. He wanted you to see that. I saw it. Yoon nodded once. He looked at the closed gate. He looked at the house behind them. Somewhere on the second floor, a light was still on in the study. He will not know yet, Yoon said. I have to be the one to tell him. Wait. Yoon waited. She looked at the gate. She looked at the house. She looked at the burgundy sedan with the cracked bumper and the coffee cup someone else had drunk from and the second floor window where the light burned. And she felt the shape of the trap for the first time, not as a shape she had walked into, but as a shape that had been built around her before she chose a single door. 2 predators. And the one in the trench coat was already writing her name on the page above the boss's. Tell him, she said, but tell him I am the one who is going to answer for it, not him. Yoon studied her for a beat. Something almost like respect moved through his face and was gone. 7 tonight, he said. 7, she said. She got into the sedan. Her hand shook once on the key and then it did not shake again. She drove out through the gate. The gate closed behind her, and this time it sounded different from every other night, not like a lock closing, but like a lid. Jasmine drove the last mile home with the heater set too high on purpose. The heat kept her hands from shaking on the wheel, and that was all she needed the heat for. She parked in her usual spot behind the second-floor walk-up, walked up the outside stairs, unlocked the door, and stood in her kitchen listening to the refrigerator hum in the wrong key. The manila envelope was still on top of the fridge, behind the cereal box, exactly where she had left it 13 mornings ago. She reached up, touched the corner of it, and let her fingers rest there for a breath. Then she took her hand down. Not yet. Whatever was inside it, she wanted to be a person who could still choose when to open it. She kept the door of that choice closed one more day. Loretta was already at the table in the beige cardigan. 2 mugs, toast that had gone cool. Loretta looked at her daughter's face and did not ask what had happened at the gate. She only slid one of the mugs across. You eat something before you sleep, Loretta said. I have to shower. After, you eat first. Jasmine ate half a slice standing up. She kept the tote bag on her shoulder the whole time, the strap crossed over her chest, the way she wore it walking through a parking lot at 3 in the morning. Loretta watched that too and said nothing about it. At 8:15, Jasmine took her phone off silent, and it started to buzz in a way phones only buzz when something has already gone wrong. 6 missed calls from Bev, 3 from a number she did not know. A text from Alicia at the dialysis clinic that said only, "Girl, call me." She set the phone face down on the counter. She would call after the shower. She was going to have 20 minutes of hot water first because a person was allowed to have 20 minutes. She had 11. The knock on the door was flat and even 4 beats, the same as a knock she had heard on the drive at 7 that morning. She knew the cadence before she saw the man through the peephole. Callahan. Trench coat still damp at the shoulders from a rain she had not noticed starting again. Behind him, 1 uniform. Behind the uniform, at the base of the stairs, another. She opened the door with the chain on. MS. Brooks. Callahan held up a folded paper the width of his palm. Warrant. Conspiracy, obstruction, accessory after the fact. You want to do this here or at your job. Loretta was already at her elbow. Jasmine could feel her mother's breath on her shoulder, the small, quick breath of a woman on dialysis 3 days a week. Not here, Jasmine said. Callahan's mustache moved half an inch. Where? The hospice steps. He tilted his head. Why there? Because if you're going to do this, you do it where the people who trust me can see the exact shape of it. He looked at her a long second. She had surprised him. He had planned the hospice all along, she saw that on his face, and she had taken the theater away from him by choosing it first. He folded the warrant back into his coat. "Get your shoes." She turned to Loretta. "Call Bev. Tell her I'm coming in but not for a shift. Tell her not to say anything to anybody until I'm on those steps." "Baby, call her Mama." Loretta's hand closed around the wooden cross at her throat. She nodded once. She did not cry. Jasmine had time to notice that and to be grateful in a small tight place under her ribs. She rode in the back of the unmarked. Callahan drove. The uniform sat beside her, not looking. The city moved past the window in its ordinary Wednesday shapes, and Jasmine kept her eyes on the small dark spot on the driver's headrest where hair oil had worn the fabric shiny, because looking at anything else made her stomach turn. At the hospice, 3 families were coming up the walk. A woman with a toddler on her hip, a man carrying flowers wrapped in plastic, an older couple holding each other by the sleeve. Bev was on the steps in her scrubs with her mouth already set in the line she made when she was about to defend a nurse to a doctor. Behind Bev, at the double glass doors, Father Emmanuel Auckhaffer stood very still with the battered leather satchel at his hip. Callahan let Jasmine get out on her own. That was the one small mercy he gave her. He read the charges out loud because he had chosen loud. Conspiracy to launder proceeds of a criminal enterprise, obstruction of a homicide investigation, accessory after the fact. He said each phrase the way a man says a prayer he has learned by heart and does not believe. The woman with the toddler stopped walking. The man with the flowers took a half step back. The older couple did not move at all. Jasmine looked at Bev first. "Marcus's mother," she said. "Denise. Somebody has to call her before she reads this online." Bev's mouth broke open. "Jas? Somebody has to call her Bev." Bev nodded so hard her whole upper body moved with it. Then Jasmine looked at Father Emmanuel. He was already looking at her. Whatever was in his eyes, she chose to read as steadiness, because she needed steadiness more than she needed the truth of it right then. He raised 2 fingers off the strap of the satchel, a small blessing that would not travel more than 8 feet. The uniform put a hand on her upper arm. He did it gently, in the way of a man whose sister was probably a nurse. She said thank you to him under her breath because she had been raised to thank people who tried, and she got into the back of the car. They took her wrists behind her back only at the precinct, at the intake counter, out of view of anyone she loved. That was the second small mercy Callahan gave her, and she noted it, because she was going to remember every single thing he did in the next 31 hours and rank it later against every single thing he had already done. Intake took 40 minutes. She gave up the wedding band on the chain into a plastic pouch, and the officer at the counter did not meet her eyes when she asked him to be careful with it. She gave up the tote. She gave up the boots. They asked her twice for an emergency contact, and she gave Bev instead of Loretta because Loretta had a dialysis chair at 11 and a phone call from a precinct would keep her from getting into it. There was a bench outside the intake area where they made her wait an hour with nothing to look at. A vending machine with 3 empty rows, a poster about hand washing curling at the top corner, a clock behind wire mesh whose second hand jerked backwards once every 5th tick and then caught itself. She counted the catches. She counted them because counting was a thing her hands could do without shaking. The holding cell was concrete painted the color of dead teeth. 2 other women, one asleep against the far wall, one sitting up with her knees drawn to her chest, watching the door. Jasmine took the bench under the light because the light was the only warm thing in the room. She sat with her hands flat on her thighs, feet flat on the floor, back straight, the way she sat with the mothers of dying children when the doctors came in with the last set of scans. The posture was not for anyone in this room. It was for her. They gave her a phone call at hour 4. She used it on Bev, not on a lawyer. She told Bev the address of the Ambulette dispatcher and the confirmation code that would get Loretta into a chair without a copay, and she told Bev to write it down twice and to text it to Alicia at the clinic. Bev asked her about a lawyer. Jasmine said she did not have one and could not afford one, and it was going to have to be public defender. Bev said Denise had already called back. Denise had asked how Jasmine was. Denise had said, "Tell that girl she is not what any of this is trying to make her look like." Jasmine put the receiver down before her face could do anything her cellmates would see. Hour 7, a young woman in a bad suit came in with a file. Public defender. She flipped pages. She asked questions in the tone of a person who had already read the news and had already decided. She told Jasmine that the DA was not offering bail on the initial appearance because the DA was arguing flight risk based on association with a foreign organized crime figure. Jasmine listened. She did not correct the word foreign. She saved that correction for later, for someone who would hear it. Hour 10, the woman in the bad suit came back and said the initial appearance had been continued to Friday morning because the assigned judge had a family emergency. Friday morning meant 38 more hours. Hour 11, a guard slid a folded newsprint page under the bars because a guard had a cousin who was a nurse and had heard the name at intake. Jasmine unfolded the page. Her mugshot. The one from 10 years ago on a nursing board renewal. Dug out of a database, hair in a puff, no makeup, wide surprised eyes. Above it in a font too big for the width of the page, hospice nurse working for Korean mob. Below it a subhead about a boss called Only S.T.H. and a car crash on an industrial boulevard. She read it twice. She folded it back. She handed it to the woman with her knees drawn up and said, "You can have it. It's warmer than the bench." The woman took it without a word and laid it over her legs like a blanket. Hour 14. Loretta made it to her 11 o'clock chair. Jasmine did not know that yet. Loretta made it because the Ambulette code Bev had passed to Alicia held. Loretta finished the session. Loretta went home. Loretta drank water and ate half a piece of dry toast, and lay down on the couch because the bed felt too far from the phone. Hour 16. Loretta did not make it to the Friday morning chair. The Ambulette did not come to the door because a supervisor at the dispatcher had flagged the account overnight after a call from a number that traced back to a departmental extension inside the precinct. Callahan had made that call. It took him one call. He had not even needed a warrant. He had needed a badge and a friendly voice, and the Copay Zero standing order had gone into review pending verification of funding source, and pending verification meant no ride. Loretta walked down to the corner and stood in the rain for 11 minutes trying to hail a cab that did not stop. And then Alicia at the clinic sent her own brother in his beat-up gray Corolla, and the brother got Loretta there 90 minutes late. The clinic could not fit her in. They rescheduled her for Saturday. Saturday came and the same thing happened. 2 sessions missed. Hour 18, hospice board convened by phone. 2 members had already seen the newsprint. 3 more had seen the online version. The vote took 11 minutes. Suspended without pay pending outcome of criminal proceedings. Bev screamed at the speakerphone for 4 of those 11 minutes. Bev's vote did not change the outcome. Hour 22, the landlord of the second-floor walk-up came up the outside stairs with a padlock in a plastic bag and a printed notice under his arm. He was not a cruel man. He was a man behind on his own mortgage who had watched the news cycle in his kitchen, while his wife told him 3 times that the newsprint page was already on his tenant's front door, and now cameras were parked on the block, and he had a daughter at Queens College and could not have his building on the 6 o'clock news. He knocked. Loretta opened. He apologized to her 3 times before he read out the notice. Non-payment of March. Non-payment of April on file for auto draft that had bounced. Immediate right of re-entry under state emergency clause invoked by public safety concern. He gave Loretta 40 minutes to take clothes and medication. Loretta took the medication, 3 changes of clothes for her daughter, 3 for herself, the wedding album, the wooden cross that had been on the bedroom wall since Jasmine was 11, and the manila envelope from the top of the fridge behind the cereal box. She did not know what the envelope was. She took it because it was up high and out of sight, and that made it a thing her daughter had wanted kept. She put it inside the wedding album, inside the plastic sleeve at the back, and she zipped the album into the olive green tote that Jasmine had left hanging on the kitchen chair. The landlord watched her take the album and looked at the floor. "Where do I go?" Loretta said. "There's a shelter on. Where do I go, son?" He did not have an answer to that. He put the padlock on and he went down the outside stairs and he cried in his van before he drove home. Hour 24. Jasmine's burgundy sedan was towed off the residential street by a private lot on a departmental impound order. Callahan had signed the requisition personally. He had written the words "evidence of transit" in the same fountain pen handwriting he used on his daughter's birthday cards. Hour 26. A guard came to the bars and said, "Your visitor." Jasmine stood up too fast, and her knees told her about the last 26 hours all at once, and she caught herself on the bar with one hand. Not Callahan, not the public defender in the bad suit. Father Emmanuel Aucaffer, on the wrong side of a visitation glass, the battered satchel on the floor between his feet where a chaplain was permitted to have a satchel. He put his palm flat on the glass. "Loretta," he said, before she could ask. Her mouth went dry in a new way. "She is alive." He said it fast because he had rehearsed saying it fast. She missed 2 chairs, fluid overload. Alicia called an ambulance last night. She is at Metropolitan. Aiku. She is stable, Jasmine. Stable is the word the doctor used to me at 7 o'clock this morning. Stable. Jasmine sat down on the small stool bolted to the floor because her legs were done. She put her forehead against the glass. Emmanuel kept his palm on the other side of it. She could see the shape of his hand darkening the surface. "The apartment," she said, not a question. "Padlocked. Where is she?" "Loretta is in a bed at Metropolitan for as long as her body needs. After that, Bev has a fold-out couch, and she has already had the sheets on it for 2 nights waiting." She closed her eyes. "Emmanuel." "Yes." "The envelope." He waited. He did not answer for a full breath. She opened her eyes and looked at him, and she saw that he already knew where the envelope was because he had spent his whole priesthood learning to know where the important things went in a crisis. "Your mother took it out of the apartment," he said. "It is safe. With her. Inside the wedding album." She let her forehead rest against the glass again. He did not say anything else for a while. He was a man who understood the ministry of silence. "When you get out of here," he said eventually, "you will open it. I don't want to open it in a cell. No, you will open it somewhere that has a door you can close from your own side." He picked up the satchel and stood. He put the palm back on the glass one more time, and she matched it from the inside, and then he was gone. Hour 29, the woman in the bad suit came back and said Friday's judge had been reassigned, and the appearance had been moved to Thursday afternoon, meaning 3 hours from now. Jasmine asked what had changed. The public defender said, "Honestly, I don't know, but somebody dropped a note on the DA's desk this morning that made him lower his voice for the first time in a week." Jasmine did not ask who. She had one guess and no proof, and she chose not to say the guess out loud in a room that might still be a room the state was listening in. Hour 30. She stood at a lectern in a room that smelled of floor wax. The judge was a black woman in her 60s with reading glasses she kept pushing up with one knuckle. The DA argued flight risk. The public defender argued clean record, ties to community, medical emergency in the family. The judge asked the DA one question. She asked what the physical evidence of conspiracy was. The DA said financial patterns and vehicle plate reads. The judge asked what the financial patterns were. The DA said the defendant had received an Ambulette benefit for her mother without a documented source of payment. The judge took her reading glasses off. "Counselor," she said, "you are telling me that the evidence that this woman conspired with organized crime is that somebody paid for her mother's ride to dialysis." The DA opened his mouth. "Sit down," the judge said, "released on her own recognizance. Surrender passport she did not have. Do not leave the tri-state area. Next appearance in 3 weeks." She walked out the side door of the courthouse into a corridor she had never seen. Bev was at the end of it in her scrubs and a coat thrown over the scrubs, holding the olive green tote in both arms like a child. Jasmine took 2 steps, and then her knees did the thing they had been trying to do for 31 hours, and Bev caught her under the arms. And they stood in the corridor a full minute like that. not saying anything, and Bev smelled like the hospice, like the cheap lotion in the staff bathroom, and like the lavender laundry sheets the linen service used, and Jasmine cried for the first time since she had walked out of the estate gate on Wednesday morning. She cried for 8 seconds. That was all she gave it. She wiped her face on Bev's shoulder. "Metropolitan," she said. "Cars in the loading zone." They walked out through the loading dock so no one from the front steps could see. Bev drove. Jasmine sat in the passenger seat with the tote on her lap, both hands closed around it. She did not open the tote. She could feel the shape of the wedding album through the canvas and the shape of the manila envelope through the sleeve of the wedding album, and knowing where it was enough for the length of a car ride. At a red light on 2nd Avenue, a black town car pulled up beside them in the next lane, rear windows tinted. Front passenger window rolled down halfway. Yoon Do-yoon looked across at Jasmine over the driver's shoulder. He did not speak. He did not gesture. He held her eyes for the length of the light. Then he raised his gloved hand 2 inches off the door frame, tilted the fingers once toward the back seat behind him, and the light changed, and the town car pulled away smooth and slow. Bev, who had not seen him, said, "You okay?" "Keep driving." Bev drove. 2 blocks later, at another light, Jasmine reached into the tote and slid her hand along the canvas wall until she felt the hard rectangular edge of the wedding album through the sleeve. Then she felt the softer, thinner rectangle inside the plastic pocket at the back. Both were still there. She let her hand rest between them for the length of one long breath. She took her hand out. She wiped her palm on her jeans. Bev pretended not to see any of it. Metropolitan ICU visiting hours were technically over. A charge nurse Jasmine had trained with 8 years ago looked at Bev, looked at Jasmine, looked at the clock, and buzzed them through the double doors without saying a word. Loretta was on the far bed, on oxygen but not intubated, eyes closed but not sedated. Alicia was in the chair beside her, holding her hand. Alicia stood up when Jasmine came in, and Alicia hugged her hard and fast and stepped back so Jasmine could have the chair. Jasmine sat. She took Loretta's hand. Loretta's eyes opened halfway. "Baby, I'm here. You out. I'm out." Loretta's mouth curved, not quite a smile, more the ghost of one, and her eyes went to the tote on Jasmine's lap. "I brought the album. I saw the thing on top of the fridge. I know, Mama. Whatever it is, baby, open it soon." "Yes." Loretta closed her eyes again. The oxygen tubing hissed the same small steady hiss the humming dialysis machine at the estate did not make, and that difference told Jasmine everything about how close she had come. Jasmine sat there 10 minutes without moving. Bev stood in the doorway, keeping the charge nurse company. Alicia went out to get coffee for all of them from a machine that made bad coffee. At the end of the 10 minutes, Jasmine stood up carefully so the chair would not scrape. She put the tote on the seat of the chair. She unzipped it. She lifted the wedding album out. She slid her hand into the plastic sleeve at the back, and the manila envelope was there, exactly as Emmanuel had said, exactly as her mother had said, tape flap still sealed, corners still square. She held it in both hands. Somewhere in the corridor, through the glass wall of the ICU pod, she saw a nurse she did not know walk past pushing an empty gurney. Somewhere below on the street, through the window at the far end of the pod, a horn honked twice. Somewhere across the city, in a study on the 2nd floor of a house behind an iron gate, a light was on that had been on for 3 nights without going out. She looked down at the envelope. She thought about the door Emmanuel had told her about, the one you close from your own side. She did not open the envelope in the ICU. She put it back inside the album sleeve, put the album back in the tote, zipped the tote, and set the tote on the floor between her feet where nothing on earth was going to move it without her. Then she sat back down and held her mother's hand, and she watched the small green line on the monitor rise and fall, and she waited for the light in the ICU to get low enough that she could close her eyes for 1 hour without anybody thinking she had given up. Outside, at the curb of the emergency entrance 3 floors below, Yoon Do-yoon stood beside the town car in the rain, his gloved hands folded in front of him, and he did not go inside, and he did not leave, and he was still standing there when the streetlights above him came on for the night. Loretta slept in pieces, 4 minutes at a time. Jasmine counted them by the pulse ox chirp above the bed. Each time the number dipped to 89, the machine cleared its throat, and Loretta's eyelids twitched and settled again. Alicia came back with 2 coffees and set one on the tray without asking. She sat on the other side of the bed and picked up her aunt's hand as if she had always sat there. She had not. Bev stepped into the pod near the 3rd hour, still in the outdoor coat, hair flattened from the rain. She did not sit. She stood at the foot of the bed the way charge nurses stand, hands folded low, weight on the back leg. Yoon is still downstairs. I know. 3 hours. I know. Bev studied her the way she studied a chart she was about to challenge. You planning to go down? Not yet. When? When I know what I'm carrying. Bev's eyes moved to the tote on the floor. She had been a hospice nurse long enough to read a bag. She said nothing about it and left to find the resident. Jasmine waited another 30 seconds after the curtain settled. Then she lifted the tote into her lap. The wedding album sat on top, the vinyl cover cool against her forearm. She slid 2 fingers into the back sleeve. The manila envelope came out with the small resistance of paper that had been pressed flat by weight for days. The tape flap had darkened where Loretta's thumb had rested. Otherwise, it was as Father Emmanuel had handed it to her, sealed, unmarked, thinner than the weight it had carried in her mind. She looked at the curtain. She looked at her mother. She stood. The family bathroom at the end of the ICU corridor had a lock she could turn from her own side. She turned it. She sat on the closed lid of the toilet and put the envelope on her knees and used her thumbnail to lift the tape. Inside there were 3 things. The first was a photograph, 3 by 5, glossy, taken at a slight angle from a hallway she recognized in the pit of her stomach before her mind named it. The palliative wing corridor. Her floor. The photograph showed a plaque she had walked past 1,000 times without reading the small line at the bottom. She read it now. The wing had been endowed anonymously 3 years ago. Under the plaque, taped to the back of the photograph, was a copy of a wire transfer receipt. The amount was not small. The account it came from was a shell name she did not know. But the memo line said, in Korean characters she could not read, and under them in English in a hand she had seen once, on a paper napkin under a plate of pears, for the room where the boy in 3C died. Her husband had died in 3C, not Marcus, her husband, 3 years ago. The second thing was a 2-page ledger, printed clean. Dates, amounts, balances brought to 0. Her husband's name at the top. Beneath it a running list of every collection agency that had held his medical debt after he died. The ones that had chased her voicemail for 18 months. The ones that had stopped chasing her without explanation a year and a half ago. Beside each account, in the same block hand, was a note. Bought and dismissed. The last date was 18 months old. She had thought grief had finally worn them out. She had thanked a God she barely spoke to that year. It had not been God. It had been a man in a wet black shirt she had not yet met. She set the ledger on the tile beside her boot and picked up the third thing. The third thing was a memo. 1 page on plain paper, no letterhead. 2 names at the top. Choi Min-yi, sender. Detective Raymond Callahan, recipient. The date was 4 days before the collision. The body was 6 lines. It offered Callahan a schedule. Times, a boulevard. A model and plate of a burgundy compact sedan that would be moving north between 1:40 and 2 in the morning after a hospice shift. Beneath the plate number, in Min-yi's compact print, 1 line, she is uninsured as of the 9th, she is alone, and she is his blind spot. Under that, a signature and a wet ink thumb smear where a coffee cup had been rested on the paper. Attached to the memo with a paperclip was a second sheet. A ballistics report she did not have the training to read cleanly, but she read enough. Angle of fire from a north overpass. Round consistent with a sniper caliber. Deflection off the front driver's side quarter panel of a black armored SUV. At the moment, the SUV had crossed both lanes to brake in front of a burgundy sedan. Point of impact on the SUV consistent with a body having stepped between the round and the driver's seat a fraction of a second before the round arrived. She read that page twice, the way she had read the address on Father Emmanuel's photograph, and then she folded her hands over her mouth so the sound she made would not travel under the door. The wet black shirt had not been rain, or not only rain. He had rammed himself in front of her. She sat there 4 minutes. She knew it was 4 minutes because the pulse ox chirp from her mother's room 3 doors down carried through the wall in the way hospital sound always carries in the wall you don't want to hear it through, and she counted her mother's breaths against it. And when she reached 100, she put the envelope back together in the reverse order she had opened it, and she stood. She washed her face. She did not look in the mirror. She left the bathroom with the envelope inside the album and the album inside the tote and walked back down the corridor with the tote against her hip the way she carried it at work. Bev was at the nurse's station. Bev looked up and did not ask. "I'm going down for 10 minutes. Take the coat off the chair. It's cold." She took the coat. The wool was heavier than her own. Bev did not tell her whose it was, and she did not ask. The elevator smelled of iodine and someone's fried lunch. She rode it alone. She watched the numbers count down, and she did not rehearse a sentence. The doors opened on the emergency lobby and the noise came at her, a triage nurse calling a name, a man on a phone, the sliding doors gasping, and she walked through it with the tote at her hip and stepped out under the awning. The rain was thinner than it had been at midnight. It was the rain of a storm remembering how to end. The streetlight above the ambulance bay was on, and the second one was on, and the third down the block was on. And Yoon Do-yoon stood between the second and the third, exactly where the light did not quite reach either of them. And the town car sat behind him with its lights off, and its engine running so quietly she had to look at the tailpipe to be sure. He saw her come out. He did not move toward her. He waited for her to close the distance because closing the distance was hers to close. She stopped an arm's length short of him. She did not open the tote. "Tell him I read it." Yoon inclined his head half an inch. "Tell him I'm not thanking him. He does not expect thanks. Tell him I'm not forgiving him either. He does not expect forgiveness." She looked past his shoulder at the town car. The rear window was up. She could not see who was inside and she did not need to. Is he in there? No. Where? At the estate with her. She let that sit a moment, then how bad? Yoon understood which question she was asking, 2 inches lower and to the left. He kept working. He kept working. She nodded once. She adjusted the tote strap on her shoulder. "Tell him I need 3 things and I am not asking for 2 of them." "Say them." "My mother's bill in this building gets paid tonight, not by him personally, through the Hospice Foundation, anonymously. If it can be traced to him, she does not take $1 of it." "Yes. My apartment is padlocked. My landlord is not a cruel man. His hypotheca is behind. Someone from a real estate firm, a real firm with a real name, is going to buy his mortgage current tomorrow morning at a fair rate and let him keep the building. I don't want the padlock cut. I want it opened by him with a key because he chose to open it." "Yes." "The third." "Yes." Choi Min-yi. Yoon's face did not move. His gloved hands stayed folded. "That one is already answered." "When?" "Tonight." "How?" "Not in a way you will read about." She held his eyes a long beat. The rain sat on her lashes and she did not blink it off. "I said 3 and I said I wasn't asking for 2 of them. The third one I am not asking for either. I am telling you, I want to know it is done. I do not need to know how. I do not want to know how. If I ever find out how, I will have to walk away from all of this." "Understood." "And Callahan?" "Also tonight. Also not in a way you will read about. Nothing on him, nothing off. A file crosses his lieutenant's desk in the morning that closes what he opened without your name in the ink. He is going to know it was me who sunk him. He is going to know it was not you. That is the point of the file." She let a breath out that had been sitting under her ribs since Callahan's coffee cup had touched her sedan's hood. She turned her head away for a second so Yoon would not have to watch her face collect itself. She turned back. "One more." "Yes." "He won." "Yes." "Who has been with her tonight?" "He has." "He hasn't slept." "No." "He shouldn't be the one sitting with her when the machine slows." "No." "Tell him I will come, on my terms. On salary through the hospice, not through him. As a nurse, not as a debt. I will sit with her until she goes. That could be a night. That could be a week. He will accept those terms. He will accept those terms because they are the only terms I offer, not because he is generous. I will phrase it that way. Good. She stepped back. She reached under the coat and adjusted the tote strap again because her hand needed something to do. Yoon watched her without watching her. One thing, he said. She waited. The wedding band. Her hand went to her sternum before her mind caught up. There was nothing there. She had handed the chain over at intake in a plastic pouch and no one had handed it back. She had walked out of the precinct without asking because she had not been able to remember what to ask for. Yoon lifted one gloved hand. He held out a small pouch of clear plastic with a property tag stapled to it. The tag had a case number and her name printed under it. Inside the pouch, the thin gold chain lay folded around the ring. How? The clerk who logs property at that precinct went to school with a cousin of his. She took the pouch. She did not open it in the rain. She closed her fingers around it hard enough that the ring made a small shape against her palm through the plastic. Tell him thank you for that one. I will not. Why? Because he did that one for himself, not for you. He wants to owe you nothing you did not ask for. She almost smiled, not quite. She turned. She walked back through the sliding doors with the pouch inside her fist and the fist inside the coat pocket and the tote at her hip, and she did not look back, because looking back would have made Yoon feel watched, and Yoon had earned the small dignity of standing in the rain unwatched for the 20 minutes it would take him to leave. Upstairs, Loretta was awake. Loretta looked at her. Loretta looked at the tote. Loretta looked at her face. You opened it. I opened it. And I'm going to sit with you until you're breathing right, and then I'm going to go do a job, and then I'm going to come back and sit with you again. Loretta studied her a long moment. That man? Which one? The one whose coat you're wearing. Jasmine looked down at the sleeve. Bev had known. Bev had let her walk out of here wearing it. She almost laughed. She did not. He isn't a good man, Mama. I didn't ask you if he was good. I asked you which one. The one who paid Daddy's collections off a year and a half ago. Loretta closed her eyes. A tear went sideways into her hairline. She did not wipe it. She did not open her eyes. Then you go do that job, baby, and you come back and you tell me the rest when I can sit up straight. Jasmine sat down. She took her mother's hand. She held it until Loretta slept again, and when Alicia came back, she stood and put the pouch with the ring into Alicia's palm and closed Alicia's fingers over it. Hold this for me tonight. I'll get it in the morning. Alicia nodded and put it into her own bra strap and sat down where Jasmine had been sitting and picked up Loretta's hand. Down the corridor, Father Emmanuel was standing by the vending machine with his satchel between his boots. He had come while she was downstairs. He looked at her face the way he had looked at her in the hospice corridor a lifetime ago and asked her nothing. I read it. Yes. You knew what was in it. Not all of it. Enough of it. Why give it to me? Because a man came to confession a month ago and said he was going to do something that would put a nurse in front of a bullet, and I could not stop it, and I could not name him, and I could not warn her without warning him. So I put what he had told me on paper in the envelope you were carrying, and I asked you to keep it safe until Monday, because if you had opened it before you knew him, you would have called the police, and the police were the wrong people to call. You had to know him first. I know him now. Yes. I don't like what I know. No, that doesn't stop it from being true. No. He walked her to the elevator. He did not offer to come. At the doors, he laid his hand once on her shoulder and let it fall. When she goes, I know. Call me. I will. The town car was gone from the awning when she came down. A yellow cab was there instead. The driver had a receipt already made out to the estate. She did not ask how he knew. She got in. The estate gate opened for her without a keypad. The guard at the booth looked at her once and nodded once and did not lift his eyes to the rear view as she passed. Mrs. Han was in the front doorway with a towel folded over one arm. She did not say a word when Jasmine climbed out. She held the door. He is upstairs. With her. With her. Jasmine went up the stairs slower than she had gone up them the first night. The door of the widow's room was open. The dialysis machine was humming its exact note. He-One was on her side, the tube dressed clean, the small lamp on the bureau throwing warm light on the wallpaper. Cot Hyun sat in the chair Jasmine had sat in for 12 nights. His right forearm rested along the arm of the chair. Under the rolled sleeve, an inch of white gauze showed at the ribs on the near side, and a strip of tape held it. He was not asleep. He was watching the widow's chest rise. He did not stand up when Jasmine came in. He knew better. Yoon told you my terms. He did. You agreed. I did. Then you go sleep in your own bed and I take her tonight. He looked at her for the first time since she had come through the door. Not long. Just the one look. In it, there was no apology and no relief and no attempt to make her carry anything he was carrying. He stood, slower than a man his size usually stands. He walked past her without touching her. At the threshold, he stopped. The pears? What about them? There are 2 on the counter downstairs. Ripe today, not tomorrow. I'll cut them at 3. Thank you. He went. She heard the study door close down the hall a moment later, and then no other sound from that end of the house for a long time. Jasmine took the chair. She adjusted the blanket at Hee-won's shoulder. She checked the line and the pressure and the flow and the color of the fluid and the small screen with the steady green numerals. And when everything was as it should be, she sat back and let the humming note find the place in her chest it had been finding for 12 nights, and had found for 140 Tuesdays, before that beside another woman on another machine. Hee-won opened her eyes at 3. Jasmine cut the pears into eighths on the small board misses. Han had left on the bureau and fed them to her one at a time between sips of warm water. Hee-won did not speak. Hee-won had not spoken since the stroke. But when Jasmine hummed the hymn her mother had hummed for 140 Tuesdays, Hee-won closed her eyes, and something under the eyelids relaxed that had not relaxed at any hour Jasmine had been in the house before. Hee-won died on the 9th night after that, at 4:40 in the morning, with Jasmine's hand under hers on the blanket, and the machine humming down to silence one setting at a time as Jasmine turned the dials the way palliative nurses turn them, when the point is no longer to keep the number steady, but to let the number find the floor at the pace the body wants it. Hyun was in the doorway from 3:50 on. He did not come in. He stood with his shoulder against the frame the way he had stood every night at 20 to 12 for weeks, and he watched Jasmine work. And when the humming was gone, he stepped back and let the room have its own quiet. And then he went down the stairs to make the calls a man in his position makes at 4:40 in the morning without waking a household. Father Emmanuel presided at the funeral 3 weeks later, at the small chapel behind the estate that Jasmine had not known was there. It was not a mob funeral. There were 9 people. Mrs. Han, 2 of Hee-won's cousins from Queens who had not been allowed to visit while she was alive because of what her husband had been. Yoon at the back, gloves off for once, folded in his lap. Hyun in a black suit in the 2nd row, not the first, because the 1st row belonged to the cousins. Loretta on the aisle in Bev's borrowed coat, her arm through Jasmine's, Alicia beside her, Bev at the door. Father Emmanuel spoke for 4 minutes. He spoke about the widow, whose name he said aloud twice, so the room would hear it belonged to her and not to her husband. And then he said the thing he had been carrying since the corridor at the hospice on a morning Jasmine barely remembered as her own life. Some debts get paid in money, he said. The real ones get paid in the person you become while you owe them. The room was quiet the way small rooms are quiet after a true sentence. Outside the chapel afterward, Hyun stood at the low wall and looked at the wet grass and did not turn when Jasmine came up beside him. She stood the length of a coat between them and put her hands in the pockets of Bev's coat. My mother is being discharged Tuesday. I know. Her chair is back on Tuesdays. I know. You paid the last 3 months at the clinic. The Hospice Foundation paid them. Through you. Through a wire the foundation's accountant cannot trace and would not tell you about if she could. I'll allow that. Thank you. I'm not staying at the estate. I did not ask you to. I know you did not. I would like to ask you something else. She waited. Would you have dinner with me on a Sunday, in a public restaurant, with a table by the window, with Yoon at a table 4 tables away because that is how a man in my position eats in a public restaurant, and with your mother, if she is well enough, and with a hymn book if she wants one? She looked at the wet grass. She looked at the small stone path. She looked at the chapel door where Loretta was standing on Bev's arm. Sunday after next. Sunday after next. Not this Sunday. My mother needs a Sunday to sit in her own kitchen and not be a guest anywhere. Sunday after next. You will not send a car. I will not. We will take a cab. You will take a cab. You will pay for our cab home. I will pay for your cab home. That is not a debt. That is not a debt. She nodded once. She did not put her hand on his arm, and he did not put his hand on hers. They stood there in the light rain that had started again and had not yet decided whether it was staying. And Loretta called her name from the chapel door. And she went, and she did not look back. And Ti-Hyun did not watch her go, because both of them had learned in the last month what it cost to look back at the wrong second. In the cab on the way home, Loretta reached over and put her hand on Jasmine's and held it the way she had held her hand the night Jasmine's father died 22 years ago. You still wearing the ring? Jasmine reached under her collar. The chain was there. The band was there against her sternum, cold in the way it had always been cold. I'm still wearing the ring, Mama. Good. He didn't ask me to take it off. He wouldn't. No, you going to keep wearing it until it feels like something I'm holding on to and not something I'm hiding behind. Loretta squeezed her hand. Loretta closed her eyes. Loretta smiled with only the corner of her mouth, the way she had smiled the day Jasmine's husband had asked her for the ring in the first place. Then you're going to wear it a while, baby? Yes, Mama. That's all right. Yes, Mama. The cab turned onto their block. The streetlight in front of the building was on. The padlock was gone. The landlord was standing in his own doorway with a set of keys in his hand. And he was not looking at the cab, because he had the small dignity of a man who had done the right thing without needing to be seen doing it. And Jasmine paid the cab and helped her mother to the curb. And Loretta took the stairs one at a time. And Jasmine carried the tote, and the tote was lighter than it had been in a month, because everything that had needed to be carried in it had been set down, one thing at a time, in the room where it belonged. At the top of the stairs, Loretta stopped to catch her breath, and she looked back down the flight at her daughter, and she said the last thing she was going to say that night. Some doors, baby, they only open one way, and some open both. You learn the difference, and you don't let anybody teach it to you twice. Jasmine put her hand under her mother's elbow. I already learned it, Mama. I know you did. They went inside. The door closed from their own side. Jasmine woke to Loretta coughing wrong, not the kidney cough, not the fluid cough. The kind that came from the top of the chest and skipped a beat in the middle. She sat up in the reopened apartment and counted 3 of them before her feet hit the floor. The clock on the microwave said 4:11. The heater ticked on in the hallway. She crossed to the couch where Loretta had insisted on sleeping the first night back and put 2 fingers on her mother's wrist. The pulse was there. Thin, fast. Mama. Loretta opened her eyes halfway. I'm all right. You're not. Baby, I'm all right. Jasmine did what she'd done 1,000 times in other people's rooms. She pulled the thermometer from the tote by the door, ran it across her mother's forehead, watched the number climb to 101, ate, and stopped watching. She lifted the blanket. Loretta's ankles had gone from thin to full in 6 hours. The skin above the sock line had the slick shine of water pushed under it. How long since you peed? Yesterday. Once. Once when? Before we came home. Jasmine picked up her phone. She did not call the ambulette. She did not call Bev. She called the after-hours line at the dialysis clinic, and while the recording ran, she pulled her boots on over bare feet. The nurse who picked up recognized her voice before she gave a name and told her to come in now. Not at 8, not at 7 now. They'd start the chair the second she walked through the door. The cab took 9 minutes. In the back, Loretta held Jasmine's forearm the way she used to hold Jasmine's hand on the way to the pediatrician 30 years ago, from underneath, thumb tucked in. You're allowed to be tired, Loretta said. I'm not tired. Baby, you are. Jasmine watched the streetlights slide across her mother's face. She let one breath out through her nose. I'm not tired yet. At the clinic, Alicia was already at the desk in her coat, still wearing the earrings she wore to bed. Someone had called her. Jasmine didn't ask who. The chair Loretta got was the corner chair by the window, warmed by the vent. and Alicia had already spread the same blanket the ambulette used across the seat. The tech ran the access needle on the first try. The machine started up with the note Jasmine's ear had memorized, that low, steady hum that had lived under 140 Tuesdays and now under this one. Jasmine sat down beside the chair. Loretta was already asleep before the pump hit rhythm. Alicia came around the desk and stood at the head of the chair a moment. Fluid, fluid. Since when? Since yesterday, she didn't say. Alicia's mouth flattened. She wouldn't. No. Alicia set a paper cup of water on the little table by Jasmine's elbow. There was a man outside when I pulled up. In a suit, not one of ours. Jasmine's hand stopped halfway to the cup. Not the one with the gloves, Alicia said. Somebody else. Older, he didn't come in. You see the car. Black, not the town car, different plates. Jasmine turned her head just enough to see the front doors. The dawn hadn't started yet. The lot outside the clinic had 2 cars, hers by staff arrangement, and a black sedan parked across the sidewalk with the parking lights on. She could see a silhouette in the driver's seat. Nobody behind the wheel of a black car in the dialysis lot at 4 in the morning was there by accident. She stood up. Her legs went cold from the knees down. Don't, Alicia said. Quiet. Sit down. I need to see. Sit down, Jasmine. You have a runner card in your bag. Use it. The runner card had come folded inside a plain white envelope on the counter of the reopened apartment the afternoon of the funeral, in Yoon's block hand, with a phone number and one word: emergency. Jasmine had put it in the zipper pocket and told herself she would not use it. She had walked past it 3 times a day for 8 days. She took her phone out. She did not use the runner card. She used the number of the taxi company that had driven her home from the estate and asked whether the driver who signed her out on the 12th was on the schedule tonight. The dispatcher said yes and asked if she wanted him routed. She said no. She said she just wanted to know his name and put the phone down. Then she opened the runner card. She read the number twice. She typed it in the keypad without pressing the green button. She held the phone in her lap and looked at it. The silhouette in the black sedan lit a cigarette. The tip flared and dimmed. Whoever it was, they weren't hiding. They wanted to be seen from inside. Alicia. Yeah, lock the front. Alicia locked the front. The sound of the bolt was small and steady. Alicia sat back down at her desk, out of the sight line from the door, and pretended to type. In the corner chair, Loretta breathed in the rhythm of her machine, unaware. Jasmine looked at the phone. She pressed green, 2 rings, and Yoon picked up. He said her name. His voice was the same voice he used at 7 in the morning at the estate, no sleep in it and no surprise either. There's a man outside the clinic, she said. How many? 1 in the car, there may be another, I can only see one. Which clinic? South Grove, the night door on Elm. How long? Alicia saw him pull up at 4:05, it's 4:20. He didn't ask why she was there. He didn't ask about Loretta. He said, stay in the chair with your mother, do not go outside, do not open the front. If he comes to the glass, do not stand up. I'll be there in 11 minutes. She said okay. He hung up. She put the phone face down on the table beside the paper cup. Alicia looked at her over the top of the monitor. Which one? The one with the gloves. Good. 9 minutes later, 2 SUVs slid into the lot without headlights and stopped 15 feet from the black sedan on both sides. Yoon stepped out of the passenger side of the closer one without an umbrella. He wore no coat. He wasn't wearing gloves. He walked once around the black sedan the long way, tapped on the driver's window twice with the back of one knuckle, the same way Taehyun had tapped on Jasmine's window on the boulevard, and stood there while the window came down. Jasmine did not hear what was said. She saw the driver's face turn away from Yoon toward the clinic and then turn back. She saw Yoon lean down and speak once, briefly. She saw the driver put both hands on top of the wheel where they could be seen. She saw the sedan start and leave the lot at a legal speed, followed by one of Yoon's SUVs at a distance. Yoon came to the glass door. He didn't try the handle. He stood a foot from the glass and waited. Alicia looked at Jasmine. Jasmine nodded. Alicia unlocked it. Yoon stepped inside and stopped on the mat. He was wet from the shoulders down. He looked at Loretta first, then at Jasmine. You're all right. I'm all right. He's from the West River. Jasmine's stomach dropped an inch. She kept her face still. How? Cho Jin-ho had a younger brother. He inherited what was left after Hee-won went. He waited 3 weeks. Waited for what? For the funeral to be public enough. Alicia had gone very quiet at the desk. Am I on his list? Jasmine said. Yoon didn't answer right away. He looked at the corner chair. Loretta's hand had come loose from the armrest and was hanging over the side. Yoon walked to the chair, lifted the hand back onto the armrest without waking her, and stepped back. You are not on his list yet, he said. You are on his map. What's the difference? The list is who he wants dead. The map is who he wants leaned on. You are on the map because he thinks a woman who took care of Hee-won at the end can be pressed for what she knows. I don't know anything he doesn't. He doesn't know that. Jasmine put both hands flat on her thighs and pressed until the shake went out of them. How does he know where my mother dialyzes? Same way we knew, Yoon said. It's not hidden. She's been coming here for 4 years. He watched the funeral. He watched the funeral. He watched the apartment. He waited to see who visited and who left and how long you stayed inside. Then he sent a man to the place he thought you were softest at 4 in the morning. He didn't come in. No, he wanted you to know he could have. She swallowed. That's tonight. That's tonight. What about tomorrow? Yoon's jaw moved once. Tomorrow is not tonight. Alicia said quietly, the chair runs for 2 more hours. I can't move her sooner. I know, Yoon said. He didn't look at Alicia. He looked at Jasmine. There will be 2 men outside this building until she's off the machine. There will be a car behind you to the apartment. There will be a man in the stairwell tonight. He won't come to your door. You will not see him unless you go looking. I don't want a man in my stairwell. That is separate from what you get. She looked at him then, really looked. There was rain in his eyebrows and his hair was flat against his forehead in a way she had not seen it before. He had come out of a bed to a phone call and he had come without a coat because a coat took 8 seconds to grab. He knows, she said, doesn't he? Yoon didn't ask who. He knows. He was awake when you called, Yoon said. He is awake now. Where? Where he is on nights like this. She didn't ask again. Yoon walked back to the door. Before he opened it, he stopped and turned his head just enough to speak over his shoulder without facing her. There is a car for you when the chair is done, not a town car. A minivan, your mother will not know it's ours. The driver's name is Ellis. He drives the hospice ambulette on Tuesdays. He is one of ours since 8 this morning. He was one of yours before that. She let that sit a beat. Bev knew. Bev found him. She called me after the funeral. She said if you were going to be looked after, you should be looked after by a face your mother trusted. Bev called you. Bev called me. Jasmine breathed out through her mouth once. Okay, Yoon left. She sat in the chair beside her mother for the next hour and 40 minutes with her hand on her mother's forearm and did not move. Alicia brought her a second paper cup of water and a granola bar from the drawer under the desk. She ate half of it. The machine ran its cycle. Loretta woke twice, once to swallow, once to ask what time it was, and each time Jasmine said the truth in a voice she made stay flat. When the tech pulled the needle at 6:50, Loretta looked at Jasmine's face and stopped smiling. Baby, it's all right. Something happened. It's handled. Baby, Mama, it's handled. There is a ride outside. Ellis is driving. Do you remember Ellis from Tuesdays? Ellis with the 2 granddaughters. That Ellis. Loretta closed her eyes a moment. All right. Ellis was waiting in a burgundy minivan that was clean inside in a way that made Jasmine's throat close. He got out and opened the sliding door and helped Loretta up the step with the kind of hand under the elbow you only learn from moving fragile people for 20 years. He didn't look at Jasmine. He didn't need to. Morning, Miss Loretta. Morning, Ellis. Coffee's warm in the cup up front for your daughter. Yours is the one on the left with no sugar. Loretta patted his forearm. You remembered. Yes, ma'am. Jasmine got in the back beside her mother and closed the door. Behind them, a black SUV pulled out of the far corner of the lot without lights and rolled 20 feet behind, keeping the distance. At the apartment, Ellis walked Loretta up the stairs first. Jasmine came behind with the tote and did not look at any of the landings. On the second floor turn, she saw the shoes of a man sitting on the top step of the 3rd floor landing above her, dark boots, one over the other, still. The man himself was out of sight around the corner. He did not stand up as they passed. He did not speak. Jasmine did not look up. Loretta went straight to bed. She was asleep before Jasmine got her socks off. Jasmine stood in the kitchen with her back against the fridge and let one breath out that had been waiting since 4:11. She did not cry. She picked up her phone. She did not call Taehyun. She called Bev. Bev picked up on the second ring in a voice already dressed. "You home?" "Home? How is she?" "Sleeping. She's off the chair." "Good. Bev." "Yeah, baby." "Ellis." "Yes. You called Yoon." "I called Yoon." Jasmine pressed the heel of her hand into her eye. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because if I told you, you'd have said no." "I would have. That's why I didn't." Silence. Jasmine listened to her mother's breathing through the bedroom door. "Bev." "Yeah. I don't want to owe anybody anything else. You don't owe Ellis anything. Ellis was already on the schedule for you at the hospice starting Monday. I moved him up." "You moved him up." "I moved him up. That's a Bev thing, not a Yoon thing. Yoon just knew because I told him." Jasmine sat down at the kitchen table. She put her forehead on the wood. She let it stay there. "Bev." "Yeah. There's a man in my stairwell." Bev didn't say anything for a second. Then I'll come sit with your mother tonight so you can sleep." "Bev." "That's not a favor, that's a schedule change. My fold-out is empty. Your fold-out has a man on the stairs above it. I'll come at 6. Feed me when I get there and we're even." Jasmine laughed once, low, without meaning to. "There she is," Bev said. "See you at 6. The line went. Jasmine sat up. She looked around the kitchen. The reopened apartment was still not fully unpacked. There was a box of dishes on the counter she hadn't put away. There was the wedding album on top of the fridge where the envelope had lived. The envelope was gone. She had burned it in the sink 2 nights after the funeral, 1 page at a time, because Emmanuel had said to keep it safe until she read it, and after that it was hers to do with as she chose. She had not told anyone she burned it. She went to the drawer under the phone and took out a small spiral notebook she used for shift notes. She turned to a fresh page. She wrote 3 lines. Cho Jin-ho brother, name unknown, West River, Ellis Tuesday's hospice, man on the stairs, do not look up. She closed the notebook. She put it back in the drawer. Then she went to the bedroom and stood in the doorway and watched her mother sleep. Loretta's hand was on top of the blanket, palm up, the way she'd slept since Jasmine was 6. Jasmine watched the hand for a minute. Then she stepped back into the hall and closed the door. She sat at the kitchen table until the light in the window went from gray to weak yellow. At 8:15, her phone lit up on the wood. Not a call, a message, from a number that hadn't texted her before, but she knew whose it was before she opened it. 2 lines, not a debt. A question: do you want him removed or do you want him kept where you can see him? She stared at the screen for a long time. She thought about the man in the stairwell. She thought about Ellis at the wheel of the minivan and the 2 granddaughters. She thought about the corner chair by the vent and the funeral 3 weeks past and the 10th pane of the chapel window with the small crack in the corner. She thought about the frame of Loretta's silence in the cab when she had said, "I'm not tired yet." She thought about Emmanuel at the vending machine saying he had known for a month what someone was going to do to a nurse and could not name it and could not warn her. She thought about the door that opened only one way and the door you close from your own side. She wrote back, "Seen, not removed, 3 dots." Then a reply, "Understood." Then, after 10 seconds, one more line, "Sunday still stands." She did not answer that. She put the phone face down on the table and stood up and walked to the kitchen sink and washed her hands with cold water for a long time. At 9:30, she went out on the stoop with a mug of coffee and did not look up at the top of the stairs. She sat on the top step of the stoop and drank the coffee and watched a woman across the street walk a small dog on a red leash. The dog stopped at every tree. The woman waited. The woman waved at Jasmine without knowing who she was, and Jasmine waved back the way strangers do. A car she did not know went past. She kept drinking. Behind her, the door to the building opened and closed once. She did not turn around. The footsteps were heavy and even and went down the stoop past her without stopping and continued to the corner and around it. She did not see the face. She did not want to. 10 minutes later, a different car pulled up across the street and parked. The driver did not get out. He did not lift a phone. He read a newspaper. The newspaper was too new for the neighborhood, the fold too sharp. Jasmine drank her coffee. She went back inside. At noon, she woke Loretta for soup. Loretta ate a full bowl and did not comment on the fact that Jasmine had put the kettle on the back burner instead of the front, or that Jasmine had chosen the chair facing the front door instead of the one facing the window. She drank her tea and asked if Bev was coming, and Jasmine said yes at 6. "Good," Loretta said. "Then you sleep this afternoon." "I'll try, you will." Jasmine did try. She lay on the couch with her boots off and her coat over her legs and closed her eyes. She kept the phone under her hand. She did not sleep. She listened to the building. She heard the pipes tick and the neighbor above run water. She heard once a floorboard shift on the landing above and stop. She kept her eyes closed. Her phone lit again at 3:40. Emmanuel. Voice call. She took it in the kitchen with the bedroom door closed. "Jasmine? Father?" I heard. "Which part?" "The part where a man watched a clinic in a black car." Jasmine closed her eyes and put her head against the cabinet. "How?" "A woman I take confession from cleans that clinic. She was inside. She saw me. She saw the chair." She let a breath out. "I'm okay. You are not okay. You are alive. Those are different words." "Father." "Yes." "Are you the one who told him where I was?" There was a pause. She listened to him consider whether to lie. He never did. "No," he said, "but I called him after." "You called him?" "I called Yoon, because when I heard which clinic it was, I remembered you told me your mother dialyzes there Tuesdays. And I remembered a man had watched a nurse before, so I called." "You called for me?" "I called for your mother." Jasmine sank down slowly until she was sitting on the kitchen floor with her back to the cabinet. "Father?" "Yes." "I burned the envelope." He was quiet. "And good. You told me to keep it safe. Until you read it, after that it was yours. Ash is safe." She pressed her hand over her mouth for a second, then she took it away. "There's a man in my stairwell." "I know. I don't want a man in my stairwell." "I know. But I told Yoon to keep him." "I know. Am I becoming somebody I don't want to be?" Emmanuel took a long time to answer. She could hear the noise of the hospice hallway behind him, the cart wheels, the soft ping of the med room. "You are becoming somebody who has children she wants to have." "I don't have children." "You have a mother. You have Marcus's mother, who calls the hospice twice a week and asks about you. You have Denise. You have Bev. You have a stairwell somebody wants to walk up. That is a kind of children." She did not answer. "Jasmine?" "Yes." "When Sunday comes?" "Yes." "Sit near the window." I already told him where I'd sit. "I know. I'm telling you why. Sit near the window because the woman across the street who walks her dog on a red leash is a retired police detective and she works Sundays for the DOCs. She'll walk the dog past that restaurant 3 times between 6 and 8. You will not see her look at you. She will see you." Jasmine's mouth opened and stayed open a second. "Father?" "Yes. You have someone on him too. I have someone on you. That is different." She began to laugh. She stopped it. She laughed anyway quietly for 6 seconds with her hand over her eyes. "Father?" "Yes. Thank you. Don't." He hung up. She sat on the kitchen floor with her back to the cabinet for another minute. Then she got up and washed her face and put water on for the second time. She heard Loretta stir in the bedroom and the slippers cross to the bathroom. She checked the clock, 4:02. She stood at the window and looked at the street without moving the curtain. The car that had been reading the newspaper at 9:45 was gone. A different car was there now, silver, one man, phone down, eyes on the door. He was not one of Yoon's. He was not from the woman with the dog. She did not know whose he was. She did not text the number that had said Sunday still stands. She took the runner card out of the zipper pocket and copied the number onto a second slip of paper and put the slip in her boot. She put the card back in the pocket. Then she put a knife from the block into the tote by the door, the small one, the paring knife she used for pears, and zipped the tote and set it beside the couch. She sat on the couch. She waited for 6 o'clock. She waited for Bev. She waited for the silver car to leave or stay. She waited for the man on the stairs to be relieved by someone else, because at some point he had to be. At 5:50, the silver car started its engine, pulled forward once as if to leave, and stopped in the middle of the block. Two doors opened. Two men got out. They did not walk toward the building. They walked toward the corner. Then they turned and walked back. They stopped in front of the building. They looked up at the second-floor window where Jasmine was sitting. One of them smiled. The other one raised a phone and took a photograph. Then they got back in the silver car and pulled away and left the block empty. Jasmine sat very still for 11 seconds. Then she stood up, walked to the drawer under the phone, took out the notebook, opened it to the page she had written that morning, and added one line under the other three. Two men. Silver sedan. Photograph. She closed the notebook. She picked up her phone. This time she did not call Bev. She did not call Yoon. She called the number she had not called since the boulevard. 2 rings. He picked up. Come. He was quiet a beat. Then, in the voice she remembered from the passenger seat of her own sedan on the first night, steady, no rush, no relief, he said one word. Coming. She put the phone face down on the table. She sat back down on the couch. Outside, the light started to fail. Somewhere above her on the stairs, a floorboard shifted once and settled. In the bedroom, her mother turned over in her sleep. The kettle in the kitchen began to whistle, low, then higher, and she did not stand up to take it off. The whistle climbed a second step, thin and insistent, and Jasmine let it. She counted her own breath instead. 4 in. 6 out. The way she counted for children whose lungs had lost the argument. On the 8th cycle, she heard a key turn in the downstairs door, 1 flight below, and knew it was not the landlord because the landlord always tried the wrong key first. The steps came up even, not fast, not slow. Even. A pause on the 3rd floor landing that she recognized from 3 weeks of him pausing in a different doorway at 11:40 every night. Then the knock, 2 taps, the same 2 taps he had put on her window in the rain. She crossed the room and turned the deadbolt. T. Hyun stepped inside without looking at her first. He looked at the kitchen. Then he crossed the room, lifted the kettle off the burner, killed the flame, set the kettle on a cold ring, and only then turned to face her. Where is she? He said. Sleeping. He nodded once. He did not take off his coat. He walked to the front window without touching the curtain and looked at the street from a foot back, the way a man looks who does not want to give a silhouette. 2 seconds. He moved away. 2 on the roof across, he said. 1 in the alley. The silver sedan is gone. It will come back. How long? 40 minutes, maybe an hour. He will send a driver first to see who I brought. She sat down on the arm of the couch because standing had started to cost her something. He noticed and did not comment. He pulled the wooden chair from the small table by the window and placed it 3 feet from her, sat in it, forearms on his knees, hands open. The gauze was gone from under the shirt now. In its place, the shirt sat flat against a rib cage that had learned to breathe around the memory. Tell me about the photograph, he said. 2 men, silver sedan, one smiled. The other took a picture of the second-floor window. Then they drove away. Which one smiled? The taller one, left side. Older. He was quiet a moment. Then, Kwon. He walked the West River Piers for Jinho for 11 years. He photographs faces he intends to remember. He does not intend to remember anyone he plans to kill quickly. You know what I am asking. I know what you are asking. He is not on the list. He is on the map. Do-yoon already told you the difference. Then why the photograph? Because his boss wants you afraid before he wants you dead. Fear is cheaper than a body. If he can make you leave the city on your own, he saves a debt. She let that sit. In the bedroom, Loretta turned once on the mattress and settled again. Jasmine listened until the breathing evened, then turned back. His name, she said. Cho Jinwoo. Younger brother. Younger by 9 years. He was a boy when I killed Jinho. He was in Seoul finishing school. He did not come home for the funeral. Nobody counted him because he was never counted. He counted himself. He waited well. 3 weeks past his sister-in-law's funeral is a message. It says, I know you buried her. It says, I let you finish. And now he wants to be seen. That is what the photograph is, not a threat to your life yet, a signature on the wall. She stood up. She did not know she was going to. She walked to the kitchen, ran cold water over her wrists for 8 seconds, dried them on the towel by the sink. When she came back, she stayed standing. I do not want him removed. You said. I want to know why he is on the map and not the list. Because he does not have enough men yet. Because his brother's people did not all come to him. Half went to a cousin in Flushing. He is standing in a house that is not fully his. He is trying to be seen because if he is seen, some of the ones who went to Flushing will come back. So this is recruitment. This is recruitment. You are the poster. She felt the ring shift on the chain under her sweater. She did not touch it. Then he does not need me dead. Not this month. And next month. Depends on how many men Flushing sends him. Then take the men from Flushing. He looked at her. For the first time since he had walked in, his mouth moved at one corner. That is not how I would have said it. It is what you were going to do. Yes. How long? 9 days. I have someone in the cousin's house already. I have someone in Kwon's building since Monday. The photograph made me move earlier than I planned. How much earlier? By 6. 6 days. 6 hours. She sat back down on the arm of the couch. The old cushion took her weight with a sigh. She kept her eyes on him. Tell me what changes for us tonight. He did not move for a beat. Then he said the thing evenly. Nothing that puts a wall between you and your mother. Do-yoon stays on the roof of the building across the street until Sunday. Ellis picks your mother up at 6:40 Tuesday for chair. There is a woman named Hanul in a car on the corner from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. She was a nurse in Seoul before she came. If your mother's breath changes in the night, she will be at your door in 90 seconds. She does not carry a firearm. She carries an oxygen bag and a phone. Bev is coming at 18. I know, Bev called Do-yoon at 17:40. Hanul comes on at 22 after Bev is asleep. You have been talking to Bev. Do-yoon has been talking to Bev. I do not talk to Bev. Bev asked that it stay that way. She does not like me. She likes what I moved. That is enough for her. Good. He nodded to something private and did not smile. Loretta needs to know, she said. She knows something. She needs to know the shape. Tell her tomorrow after chair. Do not tell her tonight. If you tell her tonight, the potassium will climb. She looked at him because he had said potassium the way a nurse says potassium, and not the way a boss says the word that a nurse said to him. He caught the look and answered before she asked. My aunt, the real one, not he one, my mother's sister. Home hemo for 7 years before she died. I know the numbers. You never said. You never asked. She let it stand. He reached inside his coat and took out something folded. She braced. It was a piece of hospital letterhead, thin, unsigned at the bottom where a signature line waited. What is this? The reinstatement letter for your position. Bev drafted it. The board voted an hour ago by phone. Denise Peterson called every one of them personally this week. 7 calls. She was the last vote. Denise. She has been calling the hospice twice a week for you. She called the board 3 times. She said she would not put another child of hers in a place that had put you out. Her sister's boy is on the wait list for palliative intake. That mattered to 2 of them. Jasmine took the letter. She read the top line. She read the top line again. She folded it in thirds and set it on the arm of the couch beside her thigh. You did not write this. No, Bev wrote it. Denise closed it. I paid a bill 3 months ago that a board member had forgotten was overdue. That was the whole of me in that room. Good. He half nodded. There was something in the way he did it that she had not seen before, and she filed it and did not name it. She said, the envelope. He was still. I burned it, she said. 2 nights after the funeral, page by page. In the sink. Emmanuel already knows. I am telling you because you should hear it from me and not from him. He was quiet for 11 seconds. She counted. Good, he said finally. The instruction was to keep it safe until you read. Ash is safe. He said the same thing. He would. Why did you put your name on paper at all? I did not. Emmanuel put my name on that paper. He copied a ledger I never gave him. He copied it from a woman who cleans the office of a lawyer who works for me. That woman goes to his confession. He asked her one day to write down what she saw. She wrote it down. He kept it for a year before he gave it to you. He said a month. He said what would land. You are not angry at him. He kept a woman alive by giving her a piece of paper. A woman I did not know I was going to want to keep alive. I am not angry. Down the hall, Loretta coughed once, dry, then settled. Jasmine did not turn her head. She had learned the difference between a cough that needed her and a cough that was just the room's dry air. This was the room. Sunday, she said. Sunday stands. I did not answer. I know. Answer now, not the dinner. The dinner is decided. I want to know what you thought I meant when I did not answer. He took his time. His hands, open on his knees, closed lightly and opened again. It was the only movement his body allowed itself. I thought you were listening to a kettle you did not intend to take off, he said. I thought you wanted to know whether I would come without a debt to collect. I thought you would decide about Sunday after I did. You are correct. I know, she said, the Dachshund woman, retired detective, 22 years, homicide, then internal affairs, Emmanuel's cousin's wife. She will walk past the restaurant 3 times between 6 and 8. If she sees anything in the room she does not like, she will drop a paper napkin outside the window. Do-yoon is at a table 4 back. He will see the napkin. He will bring the car. You knew about her before I did. Emmanuel told me last Tuesday. He wanted my permission for her to be in the room. I said yes. He asked you. He asked me. He is a priest and he still asks. He does not need to. He does it so I remember I am a man he is asking. She looked at her hands. Do you know Ellis has 2 granddaughters, she said. I know, he has a picture in the visor. The younger one is missing the top front tooth. Bev told Do-yoon. Do-yoon told me. I am telling you so you know I know. If Ellis ever stops working for the hospice on a Tuesday because of something he is asked to do, it will not be because of me. Good. Bev already told him the same, in different words. What words? I told him if he ever felt his second job leaning on his first, he was to quit the second. That was Bev. Do-yoon was in the car. Do-yoon repeated it to me exactly. Good. He stood up, not to leave. He walked to the small kitchen, opened the cabinet above the stove without needing to ask, took down 2 mugs, filled them from the kettle he had killed, black tea from the tin on the counter. He carried them back and set hers on the arm of the couch on the other side of the folded letter. He did not hand it to her. He said it. She noticed. I am staying until Hanul comes on, he said. Do-yoon has the roof. Bev is upstairs with your mother in 12 minutes. I will be in that chair by the window until 22, then I will go. Sunday is Sunday. You will not sleep. I have not slept enough in 9 days for one more night to matter. Your mother has 3 weeks of stable numbers ahead of her if she keeps her Tuesdays. That matters. You are counting her numbers. I count numbers. I am not good at people. She almost laughed. She did not, because the sound would have carried into the bedroom. She let the almost sit in her chest and rest there. Bev arrived at 6 on the minute without knocking, with a key Jasmine had given her a year ago. She came in with a canvas bag and a covered dish and stopped when she saw Taehyun in the chair by the window. She looked at Jasmine. Jasmine nodded once. Bev put the dish on the counter, put the canvas bag by the couch, walked past him to the bedroom, and closed the door behind her without a word to him. He did not react. Jasmine was grateful for that. At 7 the phone buzzed. She read it. It was Emmanuel. He wrote, "The woman with the dog walked Kwon's block at 6:15. He was not in the window. He was on the corner smoking. She has his shoes. Do not answer." She turned the screen off and set the phone face down on the couch. At 7:20 the silver sedan came back. 2 men. She saw them from her seat because Taehyun had not shut the curtain and she understood now that was the point. Whoever was in the car was meant to see her sitting in her own front window, unafraid, with a man in a chair between her and the door. The sedan sat at the curb for 11 minutes. Nobody got out. Nobody took a picture. At 7:31 the car pulled away. It did not come back that night. At 8 Taehyun said, without looking at her, that was the answer. He wanted to see if you would leave. You did not. He goes back to the cousin's house tomorrow and asks for 4 men. He will get 2. How do you know? Because I have already told the cousin what happens if he gives him 4. She let out a breath she had not been holding on purpose. You are moving faster than I asked. I am moving to the edge of what you asked, not past it. How will I know if you go past it? You will not know. You will trust that I did not, or you will decide I did and end the dinner on Sunday. Those are your two doors. I picked which two you get. That is the last thing I get to pick for you." She thought about that for a while. Bev came out of the bedroom at 8:40, made herself tea from the same kettle without acknowledging him, brought it back into the room, sat on the couch beside Jasmine, and took her hand without looking at her. Bev's hand was hot. Jasmine's was not. Bev held on and drank tea one-handed and did not speak. Taehyun sat in his chair. Bev sat on the couch. Jasmine sat between them. Nobody spoke for 40 minutes. At 22 on the minute, a small car pulled up at the corner. The lights blinked once and stayed on. Taehyun stood. He put his empty mug on the counter. He walked to the door. At the door, he stopped and turned to Bev before he turned to Jasmine. "Thank you," he said to Bev. Bev did not look up from her tea. "Do not thank me. I am not doing it for you. I know." He turned to Jasmine. He did not touch her. He said, "Sunday. 7. The taxi will be a yellow one from the stand at the corner of Lexington. It is a taxi. It is not one of mine. I know how a taxi works." "I know you do." He left. She heard him go down 2 flights. She heard the outside door. She heard a car door in the street. Then she heard nothing that was his. Bev said, without turning her head, "He looked at my kettle before he looked at you. He turned it off." "I saw that. That is not nothing." "I did not say it was nothing. I said he looked at the kettle." Jasmine did not answer. Bev finished her tea. The rest of the night held. Hanul stayed at the corner. Jasmine could see the parking lights from the window if she leaned. She did not lean often. She slept in 1-hour stretches on the couch with the bedroom door open and Bev on the far end of the couch upright, and awake for the first half and asleep upright for the second. Jasmine woke twice to check Loretta, and both times the breath was even. At 4 a.m., Jasmine wrote in the notebook the 5th line. Silver sedan came back. 11 minutes. Did not stop again. She closed the notebook and put it back under the phone. Loretta woke at 7. Jasmine gave her the pill schedule and the tea. She made toast because Loretta could hold toast. She sat across from her mother at the small table and watched her eat and did not eat herself. "He was here last night," Loretta said. She did not look up from her toast. "He was, how long? 4 hours. Doing what? Sitting in the chair by the window, turning off the kettle, not touching me." "Good. There is a man across the river," Jasmine said, "who has been sending people to look at our building." Loretta chewed. She swallowed. She set the toast down. "How long has he been sending them?" "A week. Am I in danger?" "No, not the way you are asking." "How am I in danger the way I am not asking? If they hurt me, you would not have anyone to take you to chair on Wednesday." Loretta looked at her for a long time, then quiet. "Ellis takes me on Tuesdays." "Ellis will take you on Tuesdays, and Wednesdays if it comes to that. Bev arranged it. Taehyun did not." "Good. Mom, I heard you. I want to know if you want me to end it." "End what?" "Sunday." Loretta picked the toast back up. She chewed a corner. She set it down again. "Baby, if a man sits 4 hours in a chair to watch a kettle and does not touch you, you go to dinner. Whether you eat what he ordered is your business. Sitting down is not the promise. Sitting down is the sentence before the promise." Jasmine reached across the table and took her mother's hand. Loretta squeezed once and let go. Sunday came in slow. Ellis drove Loretta to chair on Tuesday. Hanul was on the corner every night through Thursday and moved to a different corner Friday because Dooyoon rotated her without telling Jasmine, which was the correct order of things. Emmanuel came by Wednesday with a paper bag of pears and a lined tablet on which he had written nothing. He drank tea. He left the pears. He said only, "I told Denise you got the letter." Jasmine said, "Thank you." He said, "Do not thank me. Thank her when you go back." She went back Thursday, half a shift days, no children of her own on the ledger yet, 3 intakes she used to know and 1 she did not. Denise was in the corridor holding a paper cup of coffee she had not drunk. Jasmine crossed the corridor and put her arms around Denise without speaking. Denise did not cry. Denise said into her shoulder, "You do not owe me. I made those calls because I owed you." Jasmine said, "You do not owe me either." They stood for a while. A charge nurse walked past and did not slow. Friday, the paring knife came out of the tote. Jasmine put it back in the drawer where it belonged. She left the slip with the runner card number in the inside of her boot for 2 more days. Then she took it out and folded it into the wallet where phone numbers went. It was not a runner number anymore. It was a number. Saturday night, Kwon left the city. Do-yoon told Jasmine at the door in one sentence when he came to check the stairwell. The photograph is gone. He took it with him. She did not ask what that meant for the man on the corner. She trusted the sentence. Sunday at 6:40, a yellow taxi from the Lexington stand pulled up at the curb. She came down in a dark plain dress that had been in her closet since before her husband died, low heels she could walk in. The coat Bev had given her because she liked it now, the ring on the chain under the collar, and the wallet with the number in it. She had not put the paring knife back in her bag. She had put a pear in it. The restaurant was on the west side. The window table was hers because he had asked for a window table. He was at the table when she arrived, standing when she came in, not moving toward her. He waited until she reached the table. He pulled the chair out. He sat when she sat. She saw Do-yoon 4 tables back reading a menu he did not need. She saw a woman with a dachshund on a red leash pass the window at 6:52, at 7:21, and at 7:58. The third time, the woman glanced in and kept walking without slowing. No napkin fell on the sidewalk. They ordered simple food. He ate a little. She ate a little more than she expected. They did not talk about the West River. They did not talk about Hewon. They did not talk about the envelope. They talked about the numbers he had learned watching his aunt for 7 years, and the numbers she had learned watching Loretta for 3, and the way the numbers were almost the same numbers and almost the same aunts and almost the same nights. He asked what her husband had been like at the end. She told him. He did not offer his own end in exchange. He listened. At 8:40, she paid for her half of the check because she had said she would and he had said he would let her. He paid his half. They walked out together and did not touch. A yellow taxi from the same stand pulled up. He opened the door for her and did not get in. She sat inside and rolled the window down. "Wednesday," he said. "Not next Wednesday. The one after." "Yes." "Same taxi. Same stand?" "Yes." He nodded once and stepped back onto the curb, and the taxi pulled away. At home, Loretta was awake reading the paper Bev had brought her. She looked up when Jasmine came in. She did not ask. Jasmine hung the coat on the hook, put the wallet on the table, and sat down across from her mother. "How was your dinner, baby?" He turned off the kettle again. There was no kettle. There was. Loretta set the paper down. She reached across the table and put her hand flat on the back of Jasmine's. She held it there a long time. "Some doors," she said, "open both ways. Some open one way and you have to close them yourself. And some doors, baby, a man stands at, and he waits for you to open them, and he does not knock twice. You watched your father knock twice at every door in this house for 31 years. You do not marry a man who knocks once. You sit down across from him and you see if he can wait through the whole meal." He waited. "Then Wednesday after next you go again." "I know." Loretta squeezed her hand and let go. Jasmine went to the notebook in the drawer under the phone. She opened it to the last used page. 5 lines. She drew a line under the 5th. She did not write a 6th. She closed the notebook and put it on top of the drawer instead of inside it because it was no longer a shift log, and shift logs live in drawers. The refrigerator hummed. The pipes ticked. Down the hall, Loretta got into bed and turned the light off. In the street, a car went past with its radio low. Somewhere across the river, a younger brother sat in a house he did not fully own and counted men who were not coming, and a taller man in a coat that fit him was crossing a bridge back to a study with a light that would go off at 3 and would be off tonight at midnight. Jasmine stood at the window a minute before she closed the curtain. The kettle sat cold on the back burner. She lifted it, filled it, and put it on the front ring for tomorrow's tea. She turned off the kitchen light. She closed the door of her own room from her own side, and she slept. If this story moved you, stop for a moment and reflect. Have you ever sat beside a dying stranger and given them more tenderness than the world ever gave you? Have you ever discovered that someone you feared had been quietly paying your debts long before you knew his name? And when the truth finally arrived in a sealed envelope, did you have the courage to open it? Tell us your experiences and feelings in the comments. We read them all. And if you believe in stories about hidden mercy, engineered debt, and painful redemption, leave a like, be sure to subscribe to the channel, and click join to become a part of our community and help the channel.